Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
You want to subscribe. You want to watch. You want to be here. Welcome. I don't know. We're having a good time. How's it been? This is the first episode we've actually done technically in like a month or something. It's a new year.
Has it been a month? I thought it was like 2 weeks. Was it a 2-week hiatus?
I mean, it was like a New York minute for sure. The point is that it was longer than that though, right? When was the last Synctank? It was before Christmas. So yeah,
it was a New York timeout, I hear.
It's a long time ago. How have you been? What have you been up to?
I feel more Mormon.
You talking to me?
Well,
I don't see anybody else here.
I feel more Mormon than I've ever felt in my life. Right? Now.
Isn't that crazy? I think even the Exmo and like God bless Heidi because she's rad. And it was a wonderful conversation. But when I first was going to talk to her, I was like, "Oh, is she? Oh, she's an Exmo." So, and I was thinking that's a prejudice in my own mind right there. And she is amazing, wonderful, totally spiritual, person, and had wonderful things to say. But don't you think even she was kind of like getting excited about Mormonism and that? Like that was kind of like.
I love, dude. I think it's beyond fascinating. I think it's cooler than. Okay, maybe not cooler than Scientology. I don't know.
Dude, I mean, they invented it. You have to think about it. What comes first with the space?
Hey, so I was looking at the Book of Mormon today at a bookstore, and I saw that it was like the Book of Mormon, and it had the Pearl of Great Price and something else. It was like
Doctrines and Covenants.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, I'm sorry because I know that there's the story of the pearl. There's like a gospel pearl story.
Dude, I feel so bad because you guys were having your own lives until Mormonism, and now this guy is picking up a Book of Mormon in a bookstore.
I was trying to rack my mind around it because I know that there's multiple stories that relate to the pearl, and there's like the one about the prince who falls. Basically, he forgets where he came from and he has to remember it, and he's on a mission to retrieve this pearl that's like guarded by a snake or something. And I was wondering if this is connected to that. I know that there's the story that's relayed in the film The Knight of Cups, which is I believe a Terrence Malick film, and I was like, is that the same thing, or is like Pilgrim's Progress, or like what's going on there?
I love Pearl of Great Price is my favorite. So and it's the most Jewish, right? Because that's the one with the Book of Moses and the Book of Abraham, and it has all of the. So the way that we get this one is that Joseph Smith bought a bunch of mummies. You know, like they were looking through this collection, and they bought them. They at least bought several. I think they bought 10 mummies at least, but they went for the 2. There was 2 mummies they were really trying to get to, and they're like, Joseph Smith's like, dude, this is Joseph. This is like the Joseph of Egypt, you know, I'm convinced of it. And the few of the mummies that made it out, like, because after this, you have to understand, like, there's the Mormon extermination war, there's the destruction of everything. Like, they don't get to keep this stuff. They're poor at that point. They're going across. It ends up in the Chicago Museum, which has the Chicago fire, right? But there's parts of the collection of the mummies that ended up in Niagara Falls. So one of those mummies is at I don't know if it's still on display. I think they've moved it off of display from Niagara Falls. But that, I mean, these are pretty notorious mummies at that time. And then they have this is where everyone uses it actually most of the time to say, oh, this is where it's completely ridiculous, because he's calling it Reformed Egyptian. It's not like regular hieroglyphs or anything like that. But as Heidi was bringing up, like in terms of Abraxas, like these are stories, like very Gnostic stories of child sacrifice being evaded, or even Abraham about to be sacrificed in Egypt, you know. And it's kind of interesting because we find later really similar stories in the Nag Hammadi. Like you
mean Isaac? Are you talking about the binding of Isaac?
No. Abraham himself? In the version of the Torah where Abraham is in with his wife, I think they're going through Egypt, and he hides that his wife. He says it's his sister, right? Have you heard this?
Oh yeah. And there's a saying around it. Yeah, it's not my wife. Yeah, my sister. Yeah.
My wife. Please take her. Yeah, no.
Right. Take my wife, please, Abraham. Quote.
But yeah, so there's that, and then there's like a point, I think slightly earlier, where Abraham is nearly sacrificed himself by some priests, and the idea of him escaping or something like that.
I don't recall that, but I believe you. Yeah.
Well, that's not in like the normal Torah. I think there's some conversations of it in the Babylonian Midrash or something. I don't know for sure. But there is in the Nag Hammadi. So in 1945, when they find the Nag Hammadi, they're like, dang, of all things to parallel, you're paralleling Joseph Smith.
Right. There's a weird thing with the Nag Hammadi, because there's only one version that I've found that I'm like, this feels like the thing, because it includes all the breaks. Same thing goes with the Sumerian tablet stuff. It's like, I don't want people to fill in the gaps for me. And if they do fill in the gaps, I at least want some indication that there's a gap there, rather than just somebody taking the creative liberty to decide what people were saying. So I have a good version of the Nag Hammadi that's that way, but I've seen versions before where I'm like, is this even, are they just like making shit up to fill in what isn't there? Like, because that seems inappropriate. Whatever. I
mean, you know, that's David Ewan Jr.'s whole thing is like, is the Nag Hammadi just like there to, you know, the same reason that people were making up that they found mummies in the first place? Because a lot of the mummy findings are like, well, we didn't find anything, and they're like, okay, we're gonna like stop giving you money, and it's like, oh, I just found all these mummies. So you're like, wait, what? How come? It's just super lucky.
There's Hermetic text that's the same way. There's like there's things like the Kabbalion, which is probably Paul Foster Case or whatever, and then there's examples of old writings associated with Hermes that it do include all these breaks, like it's damaged manuscript, and so like I don't want them to fill in the blanks for me with some new agey kind of whatever.
It's new agey also comes really presentism, because I constantly have to remind myself how different people are today than they were in the past. Because imagine trying to like think about anybody before you are having instantaneous communication, the ability to check yourself on any fact,
or idiom. There's so many idioms, and you're like, it was raining cats and dogs. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right. So I mean, I've often said, right, the booty call versus the butt dial are going to be a confusing anachronism. We're going to be confused which one meant what. But hold on, I do feel like this is important. Paranoid American, I did not realize this. You are 5 followers away from Chosen One 2. Okay.
I feel like we could get it to 100.
All right. I'm literally not allowing anyone to do anything else. This is literally
everyone just be quiet until we're just going to keep.
We're going to put on
silence.
Oh, you wish. Hold on. Here, I'll turn off the song when you guys have pushed him over the line. That's how this is gonna work.
What song do we have?
On the wings of a plane, they call it the Lolita Express.
Is this copyrighted by Disney?
A journey to a place where the secrets they confess.
Disney Cruise Line, actually. It's a separate LLC.
All right, guys, you know what to do. You go to chosenone.com. You click notify on launch. We need 5 people. 5 people to push this to 100. We've been talking about this for a while, and we're almost here.
It's got
Callers are standing by.
Oh, I hope I maybe I've seen this on Lolita Express. To be among the names, the stories that they'll confess, and the whispers of the night, the secrets.
96.
that they keep.
All right, that's a start.
Oh, I hope
chosenone.com, guys. Go to chosenone.com.
With every step I
pull
take
some Epstein
and every
pictures.
move I make, I'll climb the social ladder and I'll never be a fake.
There we go. Here's some AI
For the
Epstein
sake
art.
of my ambition and the tales that will be told, I'll make my way to Lolita Express in the world they say.
Epstein GPT is a thing? Can you really talk to
Bill
Epstein?
Clinton is on a plane, they call
That's
it
gonna be
the
great.
Lolita Express.
Check this
To an
again.
island place
97,
with
guys.
secrets they won't
You got
confess.
3 more.
Hoping and I'm praying that I'll
3 more
make
people. Go to
the
chosenone.com.
For the sake of my ambition and the stories that will be.
Gonna be great. Oh, also, guys, if you're interested, you can get the whole Epstein list. Just Epstein list. You really want, feel good about it. You can read all of Guthrie's notes right here. So all you gotta do is go to xirtus.com/text/Epstein. But I'm distracting you. Because you really gotta get Chosen One. Look at this Chosen One. 3 more people. 3 more people. Yeah. So I was gonna break on you guys. 3 more. Shame on you. Shame on you.
We can check back later. I'm sure by the end of the episode.
What's the
I'm
longest
disappointed.
AI song that you've made so far? I'm curious.
Oh, usually like 8. I think 6 to 8 minutes is the longest I've done. I usually like chill out after about 2 minutes and 20 seconds because I'm like, most pop songs should be 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. You know what I mean?
Yep, no, I agree.
Yeah.
What
okay, we
I'm all
did-
about is if you have something with the same rhythm signature, you got to like make a mix, man.
That's true. That's what we're really hoping for is an XML that lets you blend them together. We're at 98 followers right now. So all I want to see 99. One
Someone
more.
wants to feel special and make it-
100.
There we go.
100. Say
Thank
who it
you.
was.
It took so long to get here. We're
Say who
here.
it was. Say who
We're
you
here.
were. There's going to be a reward. I'm telling you. You better hurry up and tell him it was you. Although he can probably check back on the Kickstarter. All right. I feel better now.
Thank you. I appreciate that, everybody.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Were we going to go back to Moses Mormonism? Do you want to talk about
I
mummies?
would like to. I'm
Okay.
cool
I'm
with
sorry.
just talking about Mormonism nonstop at this point.
Oh my God. Well, all right.
Do you know what it is? It feels so approachable. I feel like if I were in the Middle East, it would feel like it's just a few generations ago that I can go and talk to, Muhammad or whoever you want to prescribe it to. But for me, Joseph Smith is way closer, way cooler. He's the same kind of skin tone, even though I'm come from Slavics, but
Man, so I was in this group on Facebook. I mean, I wasn't going to talk about this, but since you're bringing it up, I've been in this truly based dirt group and they hate Mormons. So if you want to go in there and you want to, I mean, the thing is, there's hundreds of Mormons in this group.
what's there to
I've
hate specifically, though?
Oh, that's what I've been trying to find out, bro. So like I go and I check Christian tolerance is not a Christian virtue is what they put up after I started hanging out here. That was no longer, they kind of made that their point. But
Well, hold on, can we break that down for a second? Because that feels like you can approach that 2 different ways. You could say tolerance is not a Christian virtue, as in like everyone should be tolerant and it's not exclusive to the Christian religion. Or are they saying that being tolerant is because, or that's like the pussy version, because Jesus also had flaming swords and he was mad a lot of the time?
I think that's where they're going with it. They're like,
All right,
it wasn't the Pauline Catholics that invented angry Jesus. Jesus flipped tables. Jesus had a whip or something. Jesus was screaming a lot, and that we don't really like focus or emphasize the living angry Jesus, but that it would be really like multidimensional, to think about Jesus as a guy who has emotions, right? Because you're talking about God restrained to flesh. That means restrained to hormones, and Stoicism is such an interesting concept, but it requires restraint, right? Like that's partially he's restraining his flesh while being restrained to flesh. I think that's kind of that makes it less Docetism, because this idea of Jesus just being a perfect God all the time is not relatable. And so then you have people saying, oh, we should really listen to saints because they're just lower, they're a little bit closer to human. They're a little bit further from God, but they're closer to human, so we can listen to saints. And I think that's where we get in trouble. You know what I mean?
Is there places in the gospel besides when he turns over the money changers' tables, or at the temple, or him basically where it says, I've come to the sword thing, where I've come to take a sword, like to divide the family, the parents from the children, or whatever. I've not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill. Is there examples besides that?
I said there's a scene, which I think is funny. Like
No,
there's
a
movie
scene,
about
yeah.
Jesus and stuff. But
This
there's
was in the
this like
sequel, right?
Ignatian, using Loyola's Ignatian method. There's a scene where Jesus and Mark is angry at Sadducee because he wouldn't bless the healing of a man with a shriveled hand. There was that part too, and he's like,
Oh.
"Why are you not using this on this guy?" It kind of was like the vibe I got from that.
Interesting.
And also disappointed. He's starting to get angry. Yeah, there's a part like, so when after the well, when he's going to Lazarus's thing, they're like, Lazarus has died, and they're like, why couldn't you come here yesterday, Jesus? And he's like, why does it matter when I get here? Like he's starting to get more and more irritated.
Dude, have you ever heard Martin Luther King's drum major instinct? Are you familiar with that? That's my favorite Martin Luther King speech. And usually when you go to look it up, people will edit it, they'll change it. I have a record of it from the late 60s. And they totally edited out a section of it when he's talking about when Martin Luther King is going off about, he's talking to white prison guards, and he's relaying the story about talking to these guards. And he was just like, why aren't you out there marching with us? Because when they tell him how much money they make. And he was like, you're just as, he's like, you've been forced to side with your oppressors. Don't you see that? And he has this whole thing. But they removed that in the record that I have. But it's an incredible speech, because it starts out talking about James and John wanting to be at the right and left hand of Jesus when he has his kingdom. And they're thinking of it militaristically. So they're like, you're going to have, like, what the New Jerusalem is for them is just like this kind of like stronghold, and then Jesus is like basically a general, basically. And Martin Luther King is talking about how Jesus's response to that, like, what ego is that for them to want to be at the right and left hand of him? And he's just like, this is not won by favoritism, but by fitness. And that idea, I can relate so much to like what it means to be a chosen people, that this isn't something that's just necessarily just given to you because you're automatically, simply because you're special. It's something that's won by, your ability to rise to the occasion, like your ability to apply yourself. And that's what makes it so. And so I don't know. That speech, he takes it how it applies on an individual level, and then he takes that and basically explains how the bitter and colossal conquest for supremacy that we see from countries in the world, he believes is an extension of this same drum major instinct that James and John had. And he's like, but the way he treats it is kind of like the angry Jesus thing. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like, that's not what this is. You're totally missing the point.
That's interesting, because that's a big thing with American civil religion. I've been noticing, right? We've been saying the idea of serving, you're a servant, and you're going to be a perpetual servant from the Crusades on. But American baptism, Baptist movement, a lot of the time, like especially Second Baptist churches or anything that has to do with the Black Baptists, were comfortable with being God's servant. And that actually was romanticized to an extent in America. So we have both visions, I think, but that's a stronger vision. I think that's more pervasive, the idea of being a servant than being a co-heir. But co-heir is the word, right? What is that? Co-heir. If you go to Romans 8:19, Paul states, now if we are children, then we're heirs of God, and co-heirs with Christ. if we indeed are to go share in his sufferings in order that we may also share in his glory, right? So that, I feel like that one's, I mean, not to get like theological, but that kind of sums it up. This is probably the thing. If you're in it with him, if you're running deep with him, then you're not.
I don't want to be coerced by Jesus, though.
So why not?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're just kind of like in the club, and now you're obligated. Like what if you didn't sign up for that particular showing, and now all of a sudden it's just like you got to do the thing?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is brutal. Right, agreed. Yeah, I mean, the thing is martyrdom. It's seeing it, it's dying because you saw it. It's that true that it kills you. I mean, that whether that's a metaphor, because you could say it's like you saw God and then you blew up, or whether that's literally like truth now and you are no longer safe because the world's against revealing truth.
Right. I think we talked about this. The martyr thing is a tricky one, because are you talking about in any individual on a case by case basis? Are you talking about somebody who's like, I'm going to do what I believe to be right, and if I should happen to die in the process, at least I lived on my feet rather than my knees? Or are you talking about somebody that's like literally like, I'm going to fucking suicide bomb and like knowing that I'm a sacrifice?
No, he's not, by the way. He's just saying there's a hypothetical America.
I'm saying this as a theosophical hypothetical. But yeah, no, it's their worlds apart, right?
Well, those are two really crazy extremes, I think, like on both of those sides. But there's also a really fascinating like third extreme. And I'm fascinated with this one. I haven't found a full explanation, but the Cathars had this practice of Endora, and we were talking about this almost the other day on Mormonism, except it sounds like in Mormonism you can get to a certain point where you're just sin-free, and it's just like your Teflon Don of sin, right? You're like Trump.
Oh, we almost got
for re-election, right?
Yeah, we should go there.
But the Cathars had a concept of Endora, which wasn't necessarily like that, because the Cathars, they would go through this process that would make like they would become completely sin-free, but they realized that like they might sneeze and glance over at something and feel a certain way, and all of that's for nothing because now you've got sin again. So as soon as they felt like they were sin-free, they had this this special unalivement ceremony where you were like, it's not going to get any better than this. I'm at the top of like I'm at my peak. So I need to go out on a high. It was like a self-king kill ritual.
Oh man, that's like Heaven's Gate. No, yeah, you gotta be careful with that.
A little bit, right?
So that's not how second sealings work with Mormons, by the way. So the way with the Mormons it works is that, and it started out as basically you were at the top of the club. Now that you've paid your dues, you don't have to pay tithings anymore. You've already paid all the tithings you need to pay. I think it was designed that like you'd been a member for like 40, 50 years and you're in a retirement age, you can't afford to do that anymore or something. And then the church takes care of you, because there was a really like socialist aspect to the Mormon church. Like they were taking care of their members a lot more even than they are today. They were at the time when they had even less. But the problem was that after Joseph Smith died, Brigham Young kept the second sealing for a select group around him. And he didn't want to give it out to many people, because then people would think, well, they could do whatever they want. They don't have to listen to him anymore. So he said it was really only for him. And he also changed the rules, because the original second sealing was, it's directly between you and God. But as a husband, all of a sudden it became for the wife to be to the husband. And so all of a sudden you were swearing an oath to protect the husband, and it became like a paternalistic thing, which it wasn't originally. Originally, it was like dualistically man and woman, priest and king, priestess and queen, like priestess. Like the idea of priestesses, like people right now in the Mormon church are against women having the priesthood. But if you go to the temple, women perform because they do have one. It's just kind of esoteric. And I think that's the thing about the second sealing, is that once you become, and there are people that still do this, right? So like the guys like in charge of the church, the people at the very, very top of the church, they've got it where they're second sealed. P. Nelly, right? President Nelson is, I believe, second sealed. And they're kind of trying to make it almost disappear. Like they don't want anyone to know about it, and very few people are allowed to get it. But it is essentially the idea that you are absolved from being able to sin in your life. Like once it's really similar to Dick Cheney's concept of when the president can't, unitary executive theory, the president can't commit a crime because he's the president. So anything he does is technically not what it would be because he's the president. So now he has license to do everything. So
Well, especially if you're in an emergency, right? That's the thing. You have like emergency authorization to do what you want to do, right? That's kind
right.
of you get
But even-
special privileges or whatever.
True. But even without that, like if you were to, like steal a watch at the store, if you're the president, you can't technically have stolen a watch at the store because you carry executive power, regardless of if there's an emergency going on. It's just not something a president can do, which is really
Doesn't
interesting.
that feel anthropological? Like that feels like that's from like such a different time or something. It's like, well, that's the king. I mean,
Yeah.
the king can walk into that store and take the watch. Who's gonna, it's good.
Right.
And then you have, what's his name, Mel Brooks, and he's just like, it's good to be king. Walking out.
But it
with the
used to
watch.
be that the sheriffs could also do that, and now the sheriffs can't. I think that's kind of where people were like, okay, this is a better system. I don't see the king too often, unless the king really wants to steal my whole town or something like that.
If the president wants to come into my house and steal a comic, that he's welcome to.
Well, I
Or
mean, now
she, or
he
she.
gets
If we're talking 2025, then I welcome our new female president.
It
Dude.
sounds like a Monty Python bit. Like just like the fucking Pope shows up in your house and you're just like, get out with a broom or something, and it's just like, no, I just
Well, speaking of Pope, is there something in what prevents someone in the Mormon Church from being like, you know what, we're giving out second sealings now for 70% off, and you just got to join our little branch? Or
see, that's
like,
the
do they
thing
have
that. Well, that's the thing that's kind of what's weird about it, right? Because if you were a Lutheran, you would be kind of against this idea because it sounds really Catholic, like pretty early.
Maybe that's why this is
period.
appealing to me. I love cheat codes, like, and Catholicism is full of Game Genie cheat codes all over the place.
It really is. I mean, and so this is the thing. If you're able to pay indulgences, you can be abstained from responsibility for actions in this world. That's a major draw-in for a lot of people to Christianity.
This is gonna piss people off, but like I was raised a Jew for Jesus, and I really dig the gospel. I'm down with the gospel. I'm like, if people in America lived by the gospel, we would just be such a better country. People say, oh, Christian nation, but it's like that's not really what we got. Like if they were doing that. But the thing is that this is probably gonna piss people off. But like I've gotten into debates with really hardcore Catholics before, and when they start like taking quotes from like over the years of like religious authority figures, and they'll say something, I'm like, wait a minute, that feels like that goes against Jesus's whole thing. And then they'll be like, well, actually, and then there's like a million places that they can take things from. It's almost like taking something from the Talmud, and I'm like, is that like, are we taking that in context? Like, is that literally what was like? Was there some rebuttal to this? Like, because I'm not a Catholic, so I don't know the full details on any given issue, but they'll be like, it comes up a lot where I'm like, that doesn't sound very Christian. They're like, well, here it is. Like,
well, Catholicism is interesting because it's built up like, how they find like weird rules that it's like, oh, apparently in Michigan, back in 1832, it's like you're just allowed to kick dogs on Wednesdays, and like no one ever bothered to write it out. You know what I mean? But Catholicism is that, but rewind that to like 1,000 years essentially, and they don't just be like, oh, well, that was so long ago, we don't actually do that anymore. They'll actually open it up to that page and be like, no, God says that we kick dogs on Wednesdays. That's just how it is. And if you want to undo that, or if you've got your own thing, like, good luck, buddy, getting your line of theologians to come to court and sort of like present a case. And it becomes very like, methodical and litigious at a certain point. And I kind of like that about it, because there is something in Catholicism where you're like, that doesn't make sense. Where does that come from? And there's going to be one weirdo, maybe not in your particular church, but they'll be able to show you like where that decision was made and who made it.
Right. And look, there's a stamp here from the Pope. The Pope stamped it.
Right, dude.
You're like,
it was signed off.
I'm sorry. I guess I can't argue with that. It's the fucking Pope. Excuse me.
But that's why people also have like, there's no credibility. No one can ever believe. So when you talk to someone about Joseph Smith, like a lot of people say, I don't believe anything. I'm sure he sacrificed babies or did all this other, stuff like that, because he's in charge and he must have lied about everything he said. But it's really weird then, like they have these books which are about what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to live their lives. And it seems like there's it's like a complete veil for evil behavior. Because on the other side of that, they're like, yeah, but I need to do this in order to accelerate change. I don't know. It seems like, because what is the deal here? I mean, especially the child sacrifice thing is interesting. Joseph Smith having basically 6 of his kids die in infancy, and Heidi bringing that up, this like kind of idea, like, yeah, he didn't have almost any kids he had 0 kids with any polygamous families, but could it have been some sort of child sacrifice magic? And it's like that goes against everything that you see publicly, but it does sound like certain kinds of, I mean, those rituals exist for Abraxas.
And
You know?
I want to know, I'm going to assume that at the very core of that, and you're like, Joseph Smith, why are you killing all your kids? And he's like, so you don't have to. I would just love that as the nugget anyways.
Well, I mean, it's
Like,
in the
that's
Bible, right?
acceptable.
Abraham was like, and Isaac, I think you were talking about earlier. So
He didn't do it.
yeah,
His hand was stopped by Metatron or whatever.
yeah.
But he was going to.
Yeah. There's the clue that it's Metatron because it's the way that's spoken to at some point. It says my name is in him. So it's Hashem saying my name is in him. And what does that mean? Apparently it's that the gematria of Metatron is 314, and which is also the gematria of Shaddai, which is, you know, written in the front of the scroll within the tefillin and on the mezuzah, and this is the name of God. And so they connect Metatron with that, and that supposedly that was, you know, Metatron is angel of some, demons to others, you know, depending on how you look at it. So that's why I always felt like Pinhead in the Hellraiser series was totally supposed to be Metatron, which is why there's the box, because it's like Metatron's cube or whatever.
So underrated, by the way. That movie, I mean, I guess it's just practical effects and Clive Barker in general, but that original Hellraiser movie holds up better than almost any other 80s, 90s horror movie I can think of. Franchise.
It's so true. And you know, it's weird that the first Hellraiser and the third Hellraiser were both released on September 11th of their respective years.
You see the Christ fire here.
Right, and the third Hellraiser, actually, the cover of it and the poster art for it visualized the World Trade Center behind him. So he's like, it's like Hellraiser in New York, and then they like release it on 9/11, whatever year that was. It's probably 99 or something. But yeah, it's weird.
Does Wishmaster get any credit here? Wishmaster or Warlock?
Was there a Warlock too?
Cheesy? But dude, Warlock, I feel, is also criminally underrated.
Yeah, that actor that they got for Warlock, he's pretty good. He's pretty sinister. Wasn't he in Arachnophobia? Isn't he that same guy who's like the?
He might have been.
I'm pretty sure.
I think he was he was not one of the main characters. He was a side character.
I'm sorry, I had to switch my table because it was like wobbling every time I typed, and it was really bothering me.
Yeah, not Jeff Daniels. If Jeff Daniels was Warlock, that would have been pretty cool, but that's not what it was.
I think the thing that's interesting is that this is, you know, they're hyper existentialists. They've gotten to a point where they feel so pleasure and pain, like that extreme level, that idea of existential addiction to feeling. Because if you're a being that can't feel, then you'd love to feel anything, you'd come into this world just to feel. And it just seems like a pretty realistic concept. It's just an obsession with.
I mean, I hope this doesn't seem too shoehorned, but the Miami Mall aliens, right? Someone was making this I guess they were trying to make a case of like, why the hell would aliens come to the planet and go to a mall? But I'm thinking that in the same time, like a Cenobite sort of way, like if you come to this realm to feel things, then like you just want to go to the full extreme. So like if you're an alien and you can do anything you want in the entire universe, and then you go by this earth and you're like, oh, these people are just ruled by materialism and just, you know, being in this like external aspect of it, why wouldn't you stop by and go to like a mall and get Orange Julius and get a Taco Bell? Like that would be the quintessential thing to do if you came to this planet. So it makes sense that there would be a reason for them to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the footage of it with the fireworks and the people running and the fights and stuff. I don't know if you saw that, but like, I'm sorry, like I'm always open, like it just seems so like the evidence of it is just so like nothing. I don't.
You watch
it's a mall. What nobody? They're like, oh, they confiscated everybody's phones. What the hell? They weren't allowed to. I don't. Fuck.
Dude, Pinocchio 964 is totally about this. It's like a Japanese cyberpunk movie. I'm like, basically, yeah. I think it's so dark, it's even hard to see. The idea that like they go to McDonald's, like why McDonald's exists, why hyper refined sugars exist, is because of easy in-out possession. Like you get in and out in these moments and people don't even notice it. And they're probably riding on gut fauna, right? Which is why they tell you to try to like diet to fast or whatever, because if you can stop your system from being driven by all these things, then that's like the easiest way to avoid being possessed. But most people just laugh at the idea that they're driven by something other than themselves, like their self, right? I feel like everyone's so confident that like they're in charge of themselves all the time. So we're skiing down a hill and we're able to do tricks, but we're going forward, right? There's a range of freedom. And, also what you're made of is the bus, so you're filled with all sorts of gut fauna, and you're also filled with maybe, like you're talking about your Scientology thing, like these ingrained memories, which are stimulus responses. So this is what you do when you feel a way. You're like, I just feel this way all the time. I mean, people seem pretty controlled by that.
Yeah, the description of the aliens really sounded like holograms. So I'm like, sorry to go like immediately Project Bluebeam, but I was like, if that was what they were, if what they say they saw was what they saw, it just sounds holographic, because they're like, they didn't walk normally, like floating, and there's all these indicators. I'm like, oh, so what? We just got crazy holograms going on in malls now, and people are losing their shit over it. I don't know, but yeah, there's definitely
Makes the most sense, right? Yeah,
there was a big brawl. There was a fight. It was New Year's, right? This happened on New Year's Eve, I believe.
I forget. I don't know. I know people were talking about it, but I wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure. I'm 98% sure this was New Year's Eve, and that they're talking about it later.
Dude, it's
New Year's
provided
Day. Yeah.
endless content for all the grifters out there. Like every grifter is just like full payday on this one.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so that's also
Andy's just rolling his eyes, right?
Yeah, but that's just also interesting, because the more we start, if we are seeing more projections, I mean, people are not aware of what's going on in the real world at all, right? So if they go outside at all, they're probably shocked by anything, and this is the future.
It just feels like such like a thing with that lady that was helping Dr. Evil and Austin Powers. It's like, oh, the Epstein shit is coming out. Quick, do the fucking holographic aliens. The mall. Just anything. What do you got?
Like glass they break, and it's like it just automatically triggers all of the blue beam.
They got manatees that are just pushing these balls into these slots, and then they open up large aliens at the mall. Okay, run with this. Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't there supposed to be like moon pictures too? There was like a whole thing. They're delaying the moon pictures. They're like NASA delays astronauts on the moon until 2026. Barely an hour after company abandoned its own attempt to land on the moon because of a fuel leak. It seems like there's more and more reason to do this on Earth. More and more to have like, what's the space race thing? Is that the reason that they're going to start just trying to convince us that we need to care more about aliens, or what? Why is it you think that they're doing projections if it's not just like giant shadow people?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, I bring up the leprechaun thing that happened like 10 years ago, where people thought that there was a leprechaun hiding in a tree, and it got like national coverage, and so many people fed into it, and I think in like an awesome way. Like there was the guy that made like the fake flute and everything, but like people ended up believing that this was a reality at some point.
Dude, there was a real situation that happened in Nicene Marks. I probably talked to Andreas about this at some point, if not on here. But I have a friend who testified about this. So like it turned into like an urban legend, but it's absolutely true. Like I can tell you from my personal communications with somebody who was just about to testify. She's living in Berkeley at this point, and she told me the whole story. And basically, it was that and I've seen the guy, and you may have too, Andreas. You don't live that far from there, but Nicene Marks, you go like George's picnic area type towards the end. There was a little person who used to walk his dog early in the morning, and I had my Kyle Griffin. He lived out there, and I used to see this guy walking his dog. Well, there was an incident where this girl that I know, she went out and they dropped acid in the woods, and one of the people there took off his clothes and just like went running, and they were like casual about it, whatever. Oh, he's having a good time. They're in a secluded type area, and then he wasn't showing back up, and so they were high as hell, and they started to get concerned because it's like started to get dark, and they were like calling his name, and he wasn't responding. They're just like, well, what do we do? And they didn't live that far away. So like they ended up like going home and just hoping like that he would show up or whatever. They're just like, wow, we lost our friend. And he showed up early in the morning with a vehicle that wasn't his. The list of charges that this guy got was insane, but he runs in the house and he's still naked. and he goes, "You guys won't believe this, but I found a leprechaun." And they're like, and she's explaining it to me like I can't do it justice because she's just like, we were worried as hell and we were high, so we're just like, what happened to him? Like, where? And he just runs in. He's like, I found a leprechaun, and they're just like laughing, kind of, but like kind of weirded out. And he's like, I can prove it. He tied a little person up and I think it was the trunk, but it was in the vehicle. He was like duct taped up or something. He was tied up, and they said they opened the thing, and he was just like kept on repeating, "He's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy." This guy got charged with like kidnapping. I think it was actually like if you restrain them and you put them into a closed space, it's actually like attempted is it homicide or it's attempted murder or something.
Wow.
And so I believe he was pleading temporary insanity. And she said that the guy was kind of off, but they were just like, didn't think that would happen. You know, they were just like, yeah, he was a little weird, you know, but he just ran with it. So the context is that this guy was in the woods all night by himself, high as hell. And the first thing he sees as the sun is rising, he must have been freezing. Like the first thing he sees in the morning as the sun is rising is like this little person walking his dog. And he was just like, "You're a leprechaun." And the guy was like, "You're fucking crazy." And the guy was like, "You're trying to trick me. Give me your fucking gold." And the guy was just like, "Leave me alone." And he ended up kidnapping this guy and stealing a vehicle. I don't even know. She didn't even know like how that happened, like what the exact details were, because he got arrested. She was just set to testify what she knew. And she was just like, "Where did you get this car? Like, what the hell happened?" But yeah, that is a true story.
So don't ever kidnap anybody, no matter what size they are. I mean, come on.
Well, did he ever get the gold or not?
Fort
It
Knox,
sounds like
bro.
the leprechaun got to keep his gold. This is classic leprechaun.
He lived out in the woods because he wanted to be left alone. He was on like Cathedral, Andreas. He's like right along, you know, living in nice.
So bad. I want to interview him now. We got a box saga request, 2 of them. I feel bad. I'm sorry, guys. Here.
I'm pretty sure if you contacted him, he wouldn't like talk about it.
Travis and Keenan both box sagged up. It's a good moment for me to pull up some pictures of Moses looking at manna falling from the sky. What do you guys think about manna? Think about that for a second. I like it. I like the idea of manna. Is it just mushrooms?
Somebody says Bob Saget, like that's what it's saying.
Bob Saget. Yeah, Bob Saget. I used to think Bob Saget was evil. Should we talk about that? I don't think Bob Saget is evil anymore. We can talk about manna and Moses with Bob Saget.
Talk about manna. Manna. This is just.
I'm just gonna pull up a picture of Bob Saget while you talk about manna.
Okay, so no, the basic thing is that that manna directly translated means what is it, and it's literally a question. So if you're debating on what manna is, you're literally like, what is it? You know, that's like literally what you're saying.
I'm curious, am I a simp for truly thinking that just everything's a mushroom and that man is a mushroom and Santa's a mushroom and Jesus is a mushroom? Is that like an ultimate simp take?
You're not a simp, you're just open-minded.
Ooh.
Is it open-minded, or is it just like latching on to
it's open-minded unless if you're gonna insist that this is the absolute fact and you yawn Irving out on us and just like tell us what it is without any ability to be questioned.
Can you literally grow enough mushrooms off of human and cow and like cattle excrement that you can feed your humans and your cattle for perpetually, for indefinitely, essentially? Because that's kind of what we're saying. Is like they've got a trail of manna. If it is mushrooms, then you're saying you got a trail of manna everywhere they go because there's just all that many people and cattle, right? Like, that's kind of the best explanation for it. But that means if they're eating that, I mean, don't you eventually have a certain breakdown of ATPs where you don't retain glucose, or I don't know. It depends on how efficient mushrooms are.
Well, if you're going to go there with the psychedelic aspect anyway, just look at the temple incense and the fact that like the tabernacle and everything that are used within the tabernacle, it incorporates acacia, and acacia is listed as one of the ingredients in the temple incense, and the things that they were doing in the tabernacle, they were doing in the temple. So one way or the other, Thomas, you can make the argument that they were high as hell. However you
The
slice
acacia
it.
is another deep one too, because I mean, I'll just say there's a book called Psychedelic Freemasonry, I think.
I'll
And
just say.
I'm not gonna get too far into the minutia here, but essentially, yeah, that's it right there. Kamiki Stoned. But
Edie.
Andreas was talking the other night about how Freemasons and Mormons were kind of these two groups that were trying to reestablish the concept of a temple.
So it's based.
And that they were kind of relegated to having these tabernacles instead of temples, these like traveling temples. And there's also something to be said about if these were just like little pop-up, psychedelic sort of like, hit me up when I'm coming through town sort of deals where this is where you would know to go to.
The distinction is that there's workings around that incorporate the use of psychedelics. A lot of the ingredients that are listed in the temple incense, we don't know what they are. So literally, like if you're like looking in any place academic about it, they're like, we know what some of these ingredients are, including acacia, but we don't know what all of them are.
Well,
so
like
it's like
Hykion, right? Like the ancient Greek mysteries, where like we know what it was called, and we think we might know what might have went in it, but there's no recipe.
Right. There is a recipe listed. It's just the words are like, what are these words? Like we don't even really know. But the point is that they're incorporating psychedelics and what they're doing. It's not like, I think there's this kind of Western, and it's not just Western, but there's this idea of like that you just take this thing and it does this thing, almost like you're going to a show. Like I got tickets to go see Pink Floyd The Wall. Oh, how was it? Like a spectator type of attitude. And it's like, this doesn't really work that way. Like it's you are taking something, but then it's Crowley talked about the same thing in his first novel, Diary of a Drug Fiend, where he's like, it's not just about the drug, it's about what are you doing with your experience. Oh, there he is, man. Bob Saget. That I feel like that Bob Saget roast that happened along with the William Shatner one, those are like the end of an era, like where it was just like there's like because it's all done in like with respect, but if you listen to it, there's nothing respectful about it. I mean, literally, they're calling him a pedo ass with the
hot take on roasts. Roasts are Freemasonic trials. I mean, they're Shriner trials, and
they're Shriners. I was gonna say, yeah,
they're Shriner trials. And so what you do is somebody who's gotten in trouble in the media recently, too much, like become a public nuisance, will get a Shriner trial, and they'll jokingly, because this is part of it, because they love this person, but their job is to discredit them fully in a way, and then see at the end of it if their feathers fall where the lead is equal, and if it is, then Justin Bieber gets to continue. That's my idea. That's
interesting.
Where did Bieber come in? I missed it.
I know where Bieber came in.
Justin Bieber had a roast, right?
Okay.
Anytime that there's a roast, that's what any roast is, right? The roast is
right.
a trial.
I'd like to watch this to see if they actually address what the
roast, the target
really are.
on his back. Look at the target on his back, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, egg in his face. There's an idea of what a roast is. And we were just talking about the Bob Saget roast. Bob Saget got roasted, but also I think he's probably, now that I think about it, he's probably like the least evil of all of his friends. I could be wrong. It could be that he was actually as bad as I used to think he was, but now I'm starting to think I was wrong. I like thinking I was wrong. I also think similarly, I don't really have a problem with Gilbert Gottfried. I think Gilbert Gottfried was a brilliant guy if you look at his family life.
I hate Gilbert Gottfried, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I saw him once talk normal.
Yeah.
And you've been putting us through that, and you can talk normal. Same with Fran Drescher. I like Fran Drescher, but it's like, really? You can talk normal.
Fran can't talk normal anymore. That's it's so sad. I knew a speech therapist who took care of the guy who did Scooby-Doo's voice, and he couldn't stop doing the Scooby-Doo voice. The guy who did the voice in the 70s. It ruined his life. Yeah. But I mean, Gilbert Gottfried, though, the idea of making it a dualistic personality means that when he goes home, he can be with his family. And he was like, it seemed like he was a decent human being. and he was the brunt of his own jokes. And I think that's probably like the safest way to be in this business, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? It does kind of, like you say, you bring up the Shriners in regards to the roast, and I can see them all like a bunch of Groucho Marx with cigars and those little Shriner hats and all laughing away, it's whatever. But the thing is like, you remember that awards show? I believe it was MTV, where we've talked about this before, but that they basically did, I believe it was in order, where they went through Duncan's ritual, and they had every single performance that year was like another step of initiation in Duncan's ritual. And so the question then became, who is being initiated? Like Pink's performance was that she had half of her chest exposed, at least symbolically, which was, and one, like the pant, they had one legging was like all checkered, and they were like, it was different from the other pant leg. It's like you roll up one pant leg and you have half your chest exposed. They blindfold you. I think she was even fucking blindfolded. I'll have to check that. You might have to fact check me. But she does like a trust exercise where she gets lifted up in the air. And then Lady Gaga's performance, she basically was Hiram Abiff. Like she gets like sacrificed and she's all bloody, and then she gets raised up, I think even between two pillars, if I remember correctly. And then it was just like, it was like, people were like, what are they trying to communicate? But it was like every single performance that year was like some step in Duncan's ritual. And then at the end was the kicker, because it's like, who is being initiated? And it was totally Taylor Swift. And like, I don't know, like if Kanye was told to do this or if it was just some weird spontaneity thing, but like Kanye was like, no, Beyonce, she made the best music video, and he like came up and was like, you don't deserve this or whatever. So this felt to me like this was kind of setting the stage for Taylor Swift's career, that it was like, it was a test to see how she would handle it if it was with Grace. And I guarantee you, if Kanye wasn't in the dark, you know, she absolutely was. Like that seemed to be like, that was the test. And it was kind of just, you know, a performance test, you know, but it was like, you know, it just felt like he was probably asked to do that, you know, like put her on the spot, make her uncomfortable, see how she responds. If she responds with grace, which she's likely to do, then she's the new initiate, you know. And if you look at her now, my God, she could run for fucking president if the popular vote actually mattered.
True.
Doesn't even matter what her views are. She'd just get it. You know, she's so fucking popular. It's insane.
I feel like they should replace American Idol with the presidential election. I really don't think it would be for the worse if we did it that way.
With the caveat, it should be Miss America instead, but sure. Yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're at this point. I don't know, just the idea also of the public test is really interesting. I think that's what makes the roast so powerful. I don't know if it's going away for sure. Why do you think...
okay, you know what? There is like an era, and a lot of things shifted like right around the same time. And it's like the millennium or whatever. I feel like Eckhart Tolle represented as far as the left could go in like actually like embracing like a true like spirituality. And that everything since then has just been this massive degradation. Because if you look at Eckhart Tolle and what he actually has to say, he is the antithesis, the epitome of the antithesis of like woke ideology, like identity politics in general too. Like the things that the power of now communicates, because he was propped up by Oprah after he was already a best-selling author. And just to me, that he feels like the pinnacle of the left actually being reasonable. And like everything that followed has been further and further removed. It's like that's as far as they were able to get with having, you know, somebody actually communicating some degree of truth. And then it just went from there to like total insanity, because they couldn't maintain that, because it was just, you know, it's just the ego like came through these other backdoor routes and just like ended up, everything got all twisted. But, you know, I feel like his message was actually a great message, like, and it really challenges people if they want to follow through with it. But most people just kind of made it into something else. But that doesn't change the fact of what was there in front of them. You know what I mean?
This is true. Probably the last book my mom gave me I actually read. Eckhart Tolle. I don't know. But thinking in terms of the idea of the roast as something that, you know, pardons you. Right? Like there's a clemency that comes from it. After you've gone through the roast, if you survive the roast, then you're free to go on. Right? I think that's kind of...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you want to see like Donald Trump's roast, the best place to look would be Alan Green's video Hindsight 2020. because in that he shows the
Sure.
correspondence dinner, the press dinner with when Trump was kind of put on the spot and they were just making fun of like what would a presidency look like of Donald Trump, and it was like all neon and fucking flamingos or what, it was just like some like Vegas style thing or whatever, and Obama was just like roasting Donald Trump, and you could see Trump is just sitting there fucking fuming. He's like, I'll show you, motherfucker. Like you can see in that one roast, you can see the entire future. It's like this, because he's like, I'll show you, motherfucker. Like it was,
but he did a real roast too, on top of it all, like before the election, right?
Donald Trump has been roasted his entire fucking career.
Comedy Central did the roast of Donald Trump. Donald Trump came, he sat on a throne, he did a whole roast just like Bob Saget. He did the same. If we're talking about a Shriner ritual at the lodge,
sure,
here he did it. This is more convincing.
Has the two pillars behind him right here too.
Yeah, far more convincing than the Lolita Express Trump experience is that he did go through the roast. I feel like this is real. This is hard to ignore.
Yeah.
Also, have you guys heard of I think it's called Synanon, and they had this thing called The Game, and it was kind of a very aggressive version of roasting where they weren't comedians and Shriners. It was like your peers, but they would actually nitpick and criticize like all the things that you've been doing. So it'd be like if you didn't help someone pick up, this is a horrible example, but like someone dropped a book, like next Tuesday, all of a sudden someone's like, hey, David, remember last Tuesday when you didn't pick up that book when Andreas dropped it? And then all of a sudden, like all 40 people in the room are all like, yeah, David. And they just start screaming at you. And now all of a sudden it's like, pick apart every bad thing that you've ever done. But once you leave that session, like you're not supposed to bring it up anymore, and it's supposed to be resolved. And it has a therapeutic thing where it's like, it's almost like the words are like they're beating you. It almost feels like it's physical, but it's not. So that takes the place of it.
They shave their heads and sit on.
When you get naked and put in the coffin for the Skull and Bones initiation, right? Like, do they keep bringing that shit up that you talked about? Like, I wonder if that's like, no, that was just, you shared your most private sexual history, and
someone might be like, it's in the book, dude, and that's like book. All you have to say or something.
I gotcha.
I want to talk more about the obscene rite. Have you heard about the obscene rite in the Skull and Bones?
Is that where you spit on the cross? No,
I don't know how much we want to talk about. But the obscene, obscene rite of Skull and Bones. I don't think there's one in the Scottish.
Sorry, my bad. Freudian slip.
Oh god. He's gonna have every buzzword out there. Probably.
Yeah, we should probably say Pepsi and Chick-fil-A just to make sure that we're
the Wasp Corleones, dude. That's the best description I've ever heard of Skull and Bones. The Wasp Corleones. That's perfect.
Oh, the Wasp Corleones. Waspis. They are wasps. White American, Anglo-Saxon psychopath, right? Is that what the WASP stands for? White Anglo-Saxon psychopath. That's what I heard when I lived in Connecticut.
That's a stingingly waspish.
Yeah.
But apparently, this one was supposed to be the coffin ritual that you were alluding to, which I think is like a tame version of the obscene ritual. The obscene ritual is supposed to go all the way to the point of like consuming human body parts and worse.
Or just drinking out of Geronimo's skull, right? Maybe. I get okay.
I feel like you would I guarantee you someone's put like Doritos in that thing at some point.
That's what I'm saying. You know, Doritos.
It's also that they want it like
that's the Thor skull. That's actually their black box. Sorry,
we're in different times, man, because there had to have been a time for Yale where they're just like, if people hear this, like what we're doing, like that, to create this kind of stigma around it was actually good for them. Now it's not good for them. Now we're in a nature thing, like things being exposed and whatever. It's like, but they I'm sure there was a time where they really got off on where people thought that they were doing. Yeah, I don't know if I believe everything. Is it really Geronimo's skull? How do we? It's probably just.
If you've ever been to the catacombs,
the catacombs in Paris.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you've been to the catacombs in Paris or any of the cathedrals that they made of all the human bones, it's like, okay, great. Skull and Bones has got one dude's skull. Like,
For the record, if you try to take a skull out of France, they usually will check your bag. So don't do that.
I knew a guy who got one in the 70s, and he was like, I just went through customs. They saw it. They sent me on my way. Like there was no trip around it.
Yeah, if you have a license,
there was a skull in the catacombs that had like a weak spot, and I tapped it and it fell out, and I kept it.
My word. No, you didn't. Not on this show. You didn't. Go on.
Yeah, I did.
Bro. Okay, that's cool. I don't know. Well, hopefully,
it was Minecraft
officially.
though.
It was Minecraft. That's what.
It was Minecraft. Right.
I don't know. I have stories I would never tell either. The fool of the wise man, the beggar of the king, whether poor or rich, all's the same in death. I think there's an important lesson. I mean, in the apologetics mode I've been in recently, like let's do a little apologetics for Skull and Bones. Why not? This is a group of people that think they're super cool because they're basically boring, right? Like let's be real, they're wasps. That's what that means. And they go to this club, and this is the most exciting thing that they're ever gonna do is drink wine out of a skull. And yeah, like they're rich, so it doesn't really surprise me if they at some point procured Geronimo's skull or anybody's skull. Like, you know, that's a thing that rich people do stuff, and there was less to buy from China, I feel like, at that time, so they were more likely to be like, I want to buy the skull of this guy I've heard of. That actually makes more sense that they'd be obsessed with that. And yeah, there's lore, you know, but the thing is their obsession with lore is partially like you fuel the lore by having something real. The real thing is the prop, and then from there you can believe in the prop, right? And so it's very Shakespearean to hold a skull. Like they're already being dramatic at that point.
Right, to be or not to be, yeah.
But you're telling these people you're going to end up a skull. Like here are the greatest people that you've heard about, and like at that point, the Native American culture had been defeated in such a way that it was clear it was disappearing. I mean, it had gone from in a generation prior, people meeting and knowing Native Americans the same way that you know today immigrants, right, in your town. There were, and all of a sudden that was gone. And they're further and further pushed away, not respected, not allowed to own property and everything. And people were seeing their languages disappear, seeing their cultures disappear. Things like Buffalo Bill, you know, these like theater shows that were emerging that were kind of in their defense, trying to preserve, you know, this idea of Native American culture. So you've got the Skull and Bones saying, here's something we've defeated this person. That's why they're great, because we're great. So if we defeated that person, it's like it proves, you know, they thought they were super great until we're greater than them. So they're building their greatness on Geronimo, which is already an interesting. Totally. That's integration, which is interesting. And from there, they're saying you could die, and when you die, all you'll be is bones, right? So you really don't matter, and like all that matters is what you do. And that seems very Yale.
Are you saying that the main message of Skull and Bones is the same from the opening paragraph of Barry Lyndon?
I was thinking the Grateful Dead, but it's true.
And died, and they're all dead now. You know, yeah.
All those people died.
Yeah. How wealthy or how poor or whatever. You guys see Saltburn or Saltburn? The movie Saltburn?
I saw it. Yeah. I had to watch it twice before I cared about it.
Yeah.
So, I haven't quite got there.
So you know they have the Minotaur at the end, in the middle of the labyrinth. So it's like it's kind of relatable to like The Shining, the way he's like looking at the like recreation labyrinth with the thing in front of him. Totally, but it doesn't. But at the
I mean the bath scene. The bath scene was the weirdest one.
I knew as soon as I saw like the cinematography that I had to watch it, because like, oh god, it's gonna be one of those movies that it's not really about itself. It's about all of the symbolic messages. But is that true? Like, is the movie more
I feel like it's kind of like it's like an intelligent criticism on certain. They don't have to do that thing that all the fucking Netflix movies want to do, where you have like that Kathleen Kennedy, like we need to include this and this and this. It was more like a commentary on things. It was a really good, well done movie, and it felt like the gay elements or whatever they had was like actually appropriate to the story. It didn't feel forced. Like that's my issue with a lot of what the woke film, whatever people are trying to get a high ESG score. It didn't feel like that. It just felt like this was actually what made sense for this movie in the context of the story. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty
They
good.
checked a few boxes. They checked a
Yeah.
few of those boxes.
Right,
there
but
was
they're
a
also
lot of-
critical.
What's that?
They're critical, and they did it in kind of like an intelligent way. So like when they like and they, like so that I forget what his name was in the movie, but there's like his kind of nemesis, his main nemesis, who's kind of like Femi or whatever. He's got like the trans colors on his sweater. He makes a statement of like, "You almost passed," and he goes like,
Wasn't that
"Pass
Jussie
for what?"
Smollett?
And then
I
he
thought
goes,
That was
"Is
Jussie
that who
Smollett,
that is?"
wasn't it? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, well, what the hell? So, yeah, interesting. But yeah, there's
I'm
like
just kidding, by the way. I don't want
he
to.
goes pass for what? And he goes like a real human boy, which is kind of like a Pinocchio reference.
Yeah.
But then it's like there's like something going on because it's a class issue. This movie's about like class differences or whatever. But he's trying to pass as like he's really lower class, but really he's just like, you know, slightly above like middle class, you know, like he's comes from, I'm spoiling it, I'm sorry if somebody hasn't seen it,
don't
but
spoil too much
but
there.
but
I
it's,
disagree. Go right
yeah.
ahead. I mean,
Okay.
it's just one of those things. Like, fine.
Yeah, well, for you maybe, but you know, I can't speak for everybody listening in. But anyway,
I think the idea
no,
that
just-
rich people are practicing evil things in their castles is pretty accepted by most people.
Well,
They're
that's the thing.
wow, weird, you know.
So there was something indicated in that, and it wasn't explicit, and I don't know if everybody picked up on it, but like, what is that labyrinth about? Like, it's not just it's like it's supposed to be just some kind of like artsy thing. It seems like it was used for something. And so it's got like that Ready or Not. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Ready or Not, where you just have like these ultra rich people that are just like, maybe they like to play some games and like, you know, somebody dies and no one needs to know because they're that
well,
powerful,
I feel
you know.
I forget what this is from, but I remember a story about a guy who like it was like a British dude who had his own labyrinth, and he would go like when he wanted to kill somebody, he would go into the center of his labyrinth with his pistol and his sword, and by the time he got out of the labyrinth, he'd subdued his emotions enough not to challenge the person to a duel, and he would do this constantly. I think so. I feel like this is a big metaphor though, because you're having
because it connects to the Odyssey, and the Odyssey is a very unusual story in multiple ways because it was integrated, like all of these, like just like the Greek tragedies, where it's like this isn't just a story here, like they're actually talking about something. So like the whole thing with Nemo, how he tricks the Minotaur Odysseus to get him to think that no one is there. It's kind of it's just a play on words where he's like, you know, Nemo means no man, and so he's like, who's in there? And he's like, Nemo. And then he's like, oh, so no man is whatever. But the point is, it's like that's a very symbolic story. You know what Stanley Kubrick's original production company was called? It's called Minotaur Productions, I believe.
Really?
So yeah. So like, and then you have The Shining, where he's like, Danny's kind of like playing the Minotaur, even though you think it's Jack. Like this roles kind of switch because Jack freezes to death. You know, it's like he lured him in there. So there's that argument that like Danny kind of like knowingly like manipulatively murdered Jack. You know, like I mean, it seems about right. He like followed him in there, and then he like, you know, I don't know.
I mean, immediate sync thought to like Little Nemo, Light Nights in Slumberland, right? Because a big part of this is that Morpheus has subdued Nightmare behind a gate, essentially, and by locking the gate, keeps it from happening, right? And the release of Nightmare Land is the opening, you know. Otherwise, evil is stuck in a labyrinth, essentially, behind that gate, right?
Interesting. Yeah, those are some of the best comics. We've talked about that before. I
The
love
Nintendo game, by the way, too, was also incredible for the time. Like you could have like ride all the different animals and stuff. It was the coolest thing.
It's funny because I think that the Alan Green video, Hindsight 2020, uses a bunch of footage from Nemo at one point. Just I have to say it because it's related. But yeah, that game. That was a great game. That was one of the better.
Well, this is the remake.
They're making a new one. Well, that's crazy.
Well, that one came out a while ago, I think. It's like a 2D Paper Mario style.
I can't find the original one.
Wasn't there something with Trump where he was talking about that he was just watching Finding Nemo?
That's
and it was people took it in this very symbolic way, something to do with like immigration or something, because the premise of Little Nemo is that he's trying to get to New York or something. What's the deal? He's like
Little Nemo? No, Little Nemo, he
Finding Nemo.
Oh, Finding Nemo.
The fish. Like at some point Trump said he was watching Finding Nemo. and it was like right as something else was going on, and people were reading into it in a really weird way. I remember.
Trump watched Finding Dory. Finding Dory though is way weirder because Dory is like super MK Ultra, right? It's like
Somebody in the comments said Finding Nemo, and I thought that's what it was called. Excuse my ignorance, I forgot.
No, it happened. Finding Nemo is the movie, the first one, but the sequel is all about Ellen DeGeneres is like absent-minded, like multiple personality switching, doesn't remember that it can speak whale. You know, it's like it's a secret agent courier that doesn't know who they are. Right? That's what I got. It terrified me when this was coming. I was like, I knew what it was going to be about before it was out. And it was mainly because of that one Ellen DeGeneres joke she told back in the 80s where she's like, my grandmother, you know, she used to walk like a mile a day, and we haven't seen her in like 20 years. You know,
it's actually spelled degenerate.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. She had that thing where people were getting with the frazzle drip thing because she had something on her sweater or whatever. But then I looked at it
like a Jean.
It was Basquiat.
Yeah.
It was Basquiat, whatever. Yeah, it was that guy, and it was like, dude, this is like a really expensive sweater because you know that's what she's about. She's just like, and it's so whatever the case, like even the frazzle drip shit aside, it's just like it isn't bad taste in my opinion. Like the rich white people wearing Basquiat, like if they want to be like
honestly, I think that's far worse. That's actually worse.
It's vampiric in a weird way, even without the crazy frazzle drip shit. It's just like, yeah, it feels to me like it's kind of a faux pas. Like it's just,
now would be a wonderful moment to go to our favorite site, Snopes, where we find out all the truth, which will tell you that frazzle drip is Hillary Clinton's snuff film circulating on the dark web is false. Okay, good job, internet. Thank you, YouTube. We're doing our job.
I like it so easy that all you have to do is search for it, and then you can just look if there's a green check or a red stop sign shape, and you don't even have to read any of it. You can just look for the shape and know what the answer is.
You can trust in Snopes, you know, and we're definitely convinced.
Somebody says in the comments, Kubrick would have been taken down by a Cyclops. It's Keenan Smith. The thing with that though is that HAL is absolutely the Cyclops. It is a space odyssey. Like there's elements of the Odyssey all throughout 2001, a space odyssey for sure.
I think that's a perfect point. Is the HAL is the Cyclops? Oh, come on,
HAL is totally the Cyclops.
Yeah, the one-eyed Cyclops, totally.
So we're having this conversation with the Cyclops, each one of us. Maybe it's a Triclops in this case, but we all have our individual computers and our lens is looking at us, right? So.
I mean, that's like is this right? The Antichrist in Islam is the one-eyed it's a Cyclops, right? One eye, blind in one eye. Which eye is blind is uncertain and being disputed by some. So
right. I came across something somewhere that was in some Kabbalistic text that was relating Gevurah to a big red eye. And it like kind of tripped me out because the colors were kind of like associated later, those specific colors, like these other color attributions to the Sephirot. But that Sephirah was regarded as like a big red eye, and they were actually like describing this pyramid that's like if you were to turn the tree sideways, which is kind of relatable to like the screen in 2001 being the labyrinth itself, which apparently Jay Widener actually was the first person on record to talk about that. But this idea that Chesed is the base of the pyramid and that Gevurah is the eye that's overseen, and that's the Klipot entered through Gevurah. But that idea of Gevurah as an eye and that it's associated with the feminine, even though it will be destructive because of our orientation. Is something that's always interested me. I felt like that song Cyclops Woman from Marilyn Manson's first album, Portrait of American Family, was probably like about Gevurah in that way. Because she's like, I've
got a random sync on this. The cult of Tanit, I think it is. So I'd like reading into this and thinking that it's an all-seeing eye. I realized that it's Tanit. Yeah, that's it. But so like it looks like a little like Ankh or like a little lady maybe standing there with a dress, but I've also seen some variations of this one that it looks like an all-seeing eye. It looks like a pyramid with like a sun rising behind it that might have amalgamated into an eyeball, and then you've got the horizon turns into like the little arms.
Tartaria keyhole. Here we go. Look at this. So a bunch of people were all about this at some point because of come on, man, show me that picture there. if I type in Tartaria keyholes maps, something like that. You saw it for a second there, but it was just it's so hard to click on that picture. It won't let me.
Yeah.
Which one are you looking at?
It was a map. It was right there. See that right there? I go to gallery, nothing. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So this right here, this right here, there's just tons of these. And in Aladdin, there's that scene where he's in the snow and it rolls over him in that keyhole shape, right?
Oh yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know if I can find that in the yeah. He's like in the snow and it rolls over him.
Dude, isn't it fucking weird that like Guy Ritchie did an Aladdin version? Like he did a version of Aladdin that's like the live action Aladdin, and it was like that was Guy Ritchie. What is
Did
going
you know Aladdin
on?
actually took place in China?
It kind of makes sense to me though, because Guy Ritchie is so into Kabbalah. That's why I mean, if he's in 1001 Nights, like that is like
the
most important story, right? Because I think 1001 Nights is there's a reason why like Disney took this. It's like the greatest thing ever is 1001 Nights. There's so many stories here. They could really do a lot more with it. But I mean, I could see that being filled with mythological magic.
Dude, The Thief of Baghdad is like, I think it's the original. Like you can see, like if you watch The Thief of Baghdad, I think it's from the 1940.
Yeah, with
this is just like you can see where Disney just took so much from this movie.
This is where Prince of Persia came from too, I think. This is where they rotoscoped the frames of one of the main characters.
Wow.
Yeah, there's characters in this like that are like you can just see like Disney took them verbatim almost like
yeah. Here it is. Look at that. Yeah. Pretty wild. I like The Thief of Baghdad. I think it's pretty great. There's also the other, was it Kip, I think, with Dean Stockwell. Have you seen that one?
No.
What movie is it?
I mean, Dean Stockwell.
Kim. Kim is this movie.
Oh, yeah, totally.
This is a trippy movie because it's a true story, basically, about Rudyard Kipling as a kid. And when he was a kid, he pretended to be Indian because he'd run off from his British parents and just put
this is a book that he wrote. That
it also happened
about this autobiographical. Yeah.
Is this also the plot for Short Circuit? Was it not?
Dude, I was reading the fucking script for Short Circuit, like before it was made into a movie, like the original proposal for it. I highly recommend that, like, because if you were just to read that script without any knowledge of the movie, you'd be like, this is going to be one of the greatest movies ever.
Yeah, seriously, it's so much. I want to say darker per se, but it's like without all the cartoony.
Oh wait, was that you guys? Did you show me this already? Am I just talking?
I did end up reading it. I was like blown away from it. I was like, wow, this is totally different. It's not because like according to the friend of the writer who plays like the leader of the company, he's like he watched the movie, he's so shocked because he'd read the script and he's like, it's nothing like the script was. The script was so serious. It was like a very serious movie. And you could really imagine remaking this movie just from the screenplay with no notes. It would be amazing, like. But yeah, Fisher Stevens, bro.
That guy, we talked about him. He always plays this like Indian, and he's not Indian. What's it?
He refuses to do it anymore. I think it was after Short Circuit 2. He like freaked out. He's like, no. I mean, but what's cool is like to do it. They're like, he originally was going to be hired to be a white guy because he was white, and then they're like, can you do an accent? He's like, I'm an actor. So the answer to that is, of course, I can. But so he does it, and then they end up for Short Circuit 2. They sent him to India. And he lived in India for like months and studied under specific accents and different languages and different Indian culture and customs and everything. So he full on Stanislavski method became Indian for the movie, which I find it's insane. You would never do this anymore. But how awesome is that? Like they literally had him
Gutenberg do. He didn't have to do anything, did he?
He ruined the movie. I mean, as much as like, but the thing is, you show this movie to a 7-year-old, I love it for Steve Gutenberg. So I get it. Like
you know what too though is that when this movie came out, there was also I want to say Perfect Strangers was like maybe at its peak a little bit, and you had almost the exact same silhouettes at least, where you've got this like foreigner next to the straight man with the curly hair, and it just felt like this is what is his name, Balky? Like you've got Balky, the guy that's not Balky.
What movie?
Perfect Strangers.
Perfect Strangers, the TV show in the late 80s.
Yeah, so they're like this. Oh, of course.
Yes, dude, like it's the same silhouettes. You put them
And
next
he's
to
like,
each other. It's
isn't
the
he
same thing.
Croatian? Right? Isn't that like the joke? Like he's from
You
Yugoslavia?
know that's totally like they were like, this is going to test well, you know, and like it did, and then they were just like, because like people associate it. I totally see that. Yeah.
Perfect Strangers was also like, to be fair, episode. Yeah, the where Larry meets Balky, because like he introduces him, he shows him TV. He's never seen color TV before, and he's clearly like this Eastern European character. They took this as much as they could from Taxi. They wanted so bad to have Latka, but like couldn't have Latka, so they created this guy, and it's more realistic because Yugoslavians were, you know, really hiding the fact that their culture was different, trying super hard to integrate. So
was he dead at this point, Andy Kaufman? Was he?
What year is this? I don't know.
Whatever, it's okay. I don't care.
I mean, it's kind of curious. 86. Andy Kaufman died like 86 too, didn't he?
Dude, did you guys watch the Dave Chappelle special, the recent one, The Dreamer?
No, not
yeah,
yet.
yeah. You talk about he met Jim Carrey.
Yeah. So like this is the thing though, is like when I watched that, and I don't think I'm alone with this. Like the way he's done this before, where he'll tell a story and then he'll say this relates to this other topic, and I think that he does that and doesn't always tell you what the topic is that he's giving an allegory for. So he starts the show talking about when he met Jim Carrey, and he had to pretend like he was Andy Kaufman, and he was just like, and everybody there, it's like, oh no, it's Andy. Don't say Jim. And he was just like, he was excited to meet Jim Carrey, and he's bummed about it. He says, that's how I kind of feel about the trans thing. It's like, I'm gonna stand here. And it gives that articulation. But the thing is that when he gets to the end of the show and he's talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock and Will Smith, and he's talking about the slap at the awards ceremony.
Yeah.
And I think that's I'm not alone with this, but I think that might be like another allegory. And he's actually like, he wants to talk about the Palestine-Israel thing, but he's not going to talk about it directly. Like he doesn't want to, he's already said his opinion. He talked about space Jews. He's just like, but I think that there's something in his communication about that incident that is actually meant to be taken in an allegorical way on that whole conflict, in the same way that he starts the stand-up with using this allegory. Like, and he doesn't explicitly say it, but I feel like, look at the color thing that he has with his symbol with the C, where it's like the red and the green and the white. Like he's like, I don't know, man. I could be tripping, but I feel like he just, and this isn't the first time I've gotten that from him on other topics, where I feel like he uses an allegory, but he doesn't always tell you what the allegory is. It's like, for viewers who are really paying attention, they might make the connection, but he's not going to be explicit about it. I could be tripping, but that's what I saw.
I wonder, I mean, what was his saying about space Jews? What was that?
That was an older stand-up. He was talking about a movie concept. And it was like, you know, that this, you know, that they're going to return and want the Earth back because they were like an alien race that lived here. And they're like, actually, we have a right to this Earth. And so he's already, point is that he's already kind of said his opinion on that. But at the same time, the kicker is, there's a reason why I say what I'm saying is because you know how critical he is over whatever is so popular with like the woke college students. And so the route that they've taken of how, you know, they're being reactive to something, but it's like you have issues on both sides of the table, and it's a complex situation. And his thing is not to get into the nitty-gritty of the complexity. He's more like, here's an allegory, take from it what you will, think critically, consider this. Same way that he did with that book Pimp. At the end of, I think it was Sticks and Stones, where he like references this book, and he's like, if you want to know what happened to me, check out this book, and you can kind of get the idea. So I checked out the book. I have a copy of it. And one of the things that stood out right away is that the guy who wrote that book, the pimp, what is it? Slim? Iceberg Slim, that he's like, I was, basically, I was a prostitute. And I became a pimp because I saw those were my options, be this or be that. And so like, you know, he's basically like, and it's weird, like there was that Cat Williams interview just recently, and he makes some statements about Dave Chappelle, and apparently they're friends or whatever, but it got kind of weird because I was like, wait a minute here, like Cat Williams seems to be arguing that the 50 million thing wasn't necessarily something that he turned down. It was something that he felt he was owed, or didn't just feel like it was in his contract. And they're like, they didn't expect the show to be as big as it was, the Dave Chappelle show. So they kind of like tried to backtrack or whatever. I bet you it was both. I bet you they were offering him a deal and they weren't giving him as much for what he thought he was owed. It was probably, I mean, this is what I do with things. It's like if I see two things at once and they both appear to be true, maybe they both are true, you know. But his like disappearing to Africa in turning down this contract that they were offering him, that probably happened. But it was probably in the midst of him being like, if I sue you, what position am I in with the whole industry? So he's like, if they're not going to pay him what he believed he was owed, he's like, he can fight for it, but what are they going to drop on him? How are they going to Me Too him? How are they going to do whatever blackmail they want to do or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like he's using that book to describe that he was basically somebody else's, like he was a prostitute for the higher ups. You know, and he's like, I don't want to be that. So he's like trying to get out of his contracts. There's the argument that Bill has made that I wouldn't do complete justice, but as far as Ye goes, that it's very possible that his whole freak out was largely to do with him just trying to get the freak out of his contracts. That he's like, if I'm outrageous, especially about this topic, they'll freaking let me go, and I don't have to be a slave to what I had previously agreed to. Because he probably did. I mean, not probably. He's been boisterous about his contracts and like how he wanted to get the hell out of him. How do you do that? Well, apparently, if you talk shit about the wrong people, you're gonna, they'll show you.
What about the Prince technique? Does that work? Like I'm a
kind of a little bit, yeah. Like, because if you on the level that your personality, so this is kind of like how Daft Punk isn't their own personalities. Like, they never sold their own personalities. They never gave away their own public personas. They haven't suffered from infamia, which is the Roman loss of your personal privacy, right? Because they own themselves. But they did market these persons they created. Daft Punk are persons or robot. Same with Deadmau5. Same with a lot of these things. And Hannah Montana might be a similar idea. Like, you can have multiple personalities. I think there's no law against that. It's just, it's kind of frowned upon socially because of, I think, the power it would give you, like, to have each character owns a certain amount of rights. And we look at that like with your credit cards, right? You're creating characters, personalities that are, that are your initiate to your name, that you're affiliated with, but they're not necessarily you,
Right. Is the Thin White Duke a version of that? Like, and all the other characters that David Bowie would take on when he came out with a concept album, and he's like, no, I'm this character. Like Eminem with Slim Shady or whatever, or Tony Clifton, and
Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, maybe.
Frank Zappa, Chic Your Booty.
It's really common. Lady Gaga with the Scarlet Woman. I mean, come on. It's like, you're like, I'm not this, like Lady Gaga's character is totally the character, the Maria from Metropolis. Like, that's her projected character. So in the same way as, like, Marshall Mathers has Eminem / Slim Shady, and Andy Kaufman has Tony Clifton, she had this character that you're looking at there. There's like, because there's her and then there's the product, and like that's like a theme. So it's like, but with David Bowie, it was almost like the opposite. It's almost like he's like, no, I really am this character. Whereas they're like, no, I'm not really that character. I'm over here, and he's just like, no, I'm actually that thing, at least for the time being, until he's on to the next archetype, Right. He's like archetype casting himself,
And Wu-Tang too is a great example of that, where you've got like Johnny Blaze and I'm gonna blank on all the different names, but they had like the Wu Gambino personas. They had like the Tony Stark style comic book personas. They had the Shaolin personas.
Leftover crack, choking victim, suicide. There's all, come on. Who doesn't love punk music? I think though, with like personalities, like with if you're not making music as Prince anymore, and you're forbidden from making music as Prince, that was a great legal recourse, and people should pursue having new personalities and creating new personalities if you can. In certain circumstances, they make it illegal though, right? Like, you can't just fabricate persons in the United States, but there are ways around that. So
I'm tripping out right now because I was just talking about Eminem, and I'm like, why do I? Oh yeah, since Prince turned himself into a symbol, that was like one of his lyrics in there in one of those big songs. I forget was that the real Slim Shady? Please stand up. As he refers to Prince doing that.
I feel bad that I
I think
don't
that
have
was
total recall to every line in that song right now. I should be able to pull that off. I'm sorry. Have you guys heard of chat dev? In an almost tied in way. Like, it's interesting because we've talked about chat GPT and AI and all this other stuff. What they've got now, they have multiple personalities. You have multiple agents. So what you do is you start up a conversation of like 20 people. So it's called chat dev. And basically when you run it, it will create a little business that believes that there's like 5 people or as many people as you want. One of them can be like a programmer, or several can be programmers. You have a team of programmers, and they could talk to the CEO. The CEO could talk to the legal team, and you just say you are a company and you're working on software. And then all of a sudden it will literally create, like, in 2 minutes, 6 to 8 months of interactions will happen. Like they were in a Slack Discord chat. And afterwards it'll just excrete, like, if the software company, it'll make like 20 apps, like all kinds of apps. It's made like a music player, a browser. It figures out what people want and it makes it, right? And so you could do the same thing with a music company. You could say, okay, I want you guys to research popular words. You research popular lyrics to popular songs. I want you to write music. I want you to convert that music to better pentameters. I want you to, write lyrics, etc. And then you guys are going to record it. So then you bring it over to that team. And so this is crazy because we've been just talking to one person at a time, but all of a sudden AI is pretending to be like 30 people at once.
I think the music aspect of that is a little bit outdated, maybe even the software aspect, because I think that, like, right now we're in this mode of, like, the thing that I use is the thing that David uses, and the movie that I see is the one that Andreas saw, and we can talk on the same footing. But I feel like the next branch of this evolution is that we don't ever hear the same song, we don't ever see the same movie, and we don't ever use the same app, because they've all been, like, so custom tailored to, like, what our experiences are, that we almost lose. And if you want to get into the whole, like, they're trying to separate us, conquer and divide, like, that's a part of it where it's like, I don't want to listen, no offense, David, I don't want to watch all of David's movies because, like, I need to have a Demolition Man storyline in every movie I see. I don't care how serious it is. If we're watching The Piano, like, I still want to see Demolition Man, and that might not be David's flavor, but it's my flavor. And, like, I don't know, because, like, if we're both like, oh man, did you see that new, Roman Polanski Kubrick movie that just came out last week? And it's like, but we saw it through different filters.
So that's good. I think you're maybe like a few years ahead of people on that logic. I think that's definitely, at this point, I believe that's where we're at. And I think when we get there, it's going to be essentially like Harry Potter magic photos, where instead of having the song, you'll have a virtual sim of the band. And you'll be able to, like, have them have gone drinking the night before or not, like, you'll be able to affect aspects of the band. So when they exist to make that album and play it, it will be different every time, and they can play it in different ways. I think that's coming pretty soon. Yeah, I think we're almost to that point.
Well, and the reason I brought that up, though, is that the concept of even, like, having a bunch of AI people, like, it sounds cool and, like, futuristic, and they'll go figure out what all the
look at these Indian guys who are they just outsourced themselves. They just virtually out. It's so they're laughing about it. Like, this costs literally like less than a rupee to get. Like, it's so freaking out, bro. Like, what am I supposed to do? And, like, the software this thing made is incredible. Like, you really at a certain point. The thing is, you have legal paperwork for all the software written because you have a legal team. So they're writing manuals for your software. I mean, it's like this is so intricate at that point.
Dude, what you were talking about, it's like, I don't know how relatable this is, but you remember that movie Clue from the 80s? And it was like it had alternative endings. So it's like, you're like, oh, there's this version and there's this version. I always thought it would be so cool, like, if like Hollywood or whatever released some movie that when they send out the reels, so to speak, whatever it is now, it's probably digital, but you're sending out the reels and you just have different endings and you don't tell anybody and you just let it, like, see what happens with it. Like, that would be kind of subversive. Like, The Game with Michael Douglas. You have, like, at the end of it, he, like, jumps off the thing. You can have it where he fucking dies. and there's no one shows up, and people walk away from it, they're like, I saw this movie, and they'll be talking about it, and they don't want to spoil the ending, so they like may not want to like say it, but they're like, oh, the ending was good, and they just like keep it going, because it would be a matter of time inevitably that people be like, wait, what did you see? Like, what was the ending? Like, because time goes by and you can talk more freely about the ending of a movie. Like, of course you saw it. Oh, you saw it too. And then they get there and they're like, wait, that's not what I saw. Like, I thought that would be like such a cool way to like kind of like not just troll the public, but that would be kind of like a selling point. You're like, and then when you release it or whatever, there's like, you don't know what version you're getting. Like, it's a total crapshoot, you know. It just you could have like 5 different endings of a movie, like Clue, but you're just like, you just leave it to the audience to like figure out what the hell is actually happening, you know.
There was that I like the not telling anyone part. It seems like it would get spoiled pretty quickly.
Unless they had a secret society. Sorry, I just said it.
There was a Netflix movie that kind of emulated some of that, where like during the movie you got to make decisions.
Bandersnatch, the
Bandersnatch,
Black Mirror movie, which was really fun. And then you just want to keep watching it so you can try the different route and see, well, what would have happened then? It's really just a play on, that was a play on choose your own adventure, right? Like that's what choose your own adventure is, you know.
And I think of Telltale games like that. They did that great. They made like a Walking Dead series that was really good. They even did, there's I want to say Back to the Future Telltale series. If you haven't played it, it is worth every moment it takes to play it. I love it. They go into all the coolest lore that I liked.
Well, you know what though?
Series? Is that the PS4 like game where they go to the 50s?
This is it. Oh
yeah, this was cool. I like this one. It was pretty great. It was based on a possible movie they were working on too. They wanted to make this into a movie about his parents, right? Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, well, there's a new Back to the Future coming out. Like what, next year?
Really?
Yeah. Have you seen the previews for it? It's not fake. I don't think it's fake.
Tell me it's like a GTA style. That's what I need.
No, it looks like it has lame elements. I'm not really sure yet. I don't really understand. This is real now. This is really happening. Yeah.
Oh wait, you're talking about a movie. I thought you meant a new game was coming out.
No. There's a new Back to the Future movie.
New Back to the Future. Oh my gosh, my mind is kind of blown right now. They're gonna make a new Back to the Future.
Yeah,
it's real. It's not just like a trait, like a spoiler.
It's real. I think it's some.
Do you think they're gonna digitally recreate Michael J. Fox to before he had Parkinson's or whatever?
That's what they're doing. That is what they have both. So he shows up as like a professor or something, and you can see the way that they shot it was like trying to just make that as disguised as possible, and then they go back
Bob Dylan give him a pen in his hand.
It's weird. I'm not sure if it's like he goes back and he's somehow in Britain or something, because it seems like he's fucking English. I don't know what's going on.
Have you heard the Polar Express Back to the Future theory?
Well, it's not just a theory. I mean, he had an Easter egg in there of the flux capacitor in the train. So it's
literally the train. Yeah, so it's right. It's not just a theory. Exactly.
Right.
So there's a lot going on there. I don't know, but maybe they really are making it far from. If it really happens, I'll be stoked. I don't see Back to the Future 4 wiki page. Is there a Back to the Future 4? If it's on the wiki page, then you know what I mean. Like it should be.
I mean, I've seen previews in the past that I could tell pretty quickly. I'm like, this is fake, but I don't think that this one's fake. They
definitely use the real actors for it.
Isn't a Wikipedia just Snopes with more stuff?
What's up?
Oh, that's right. It's time to talk about it.
Sam Newsman on the beat, bringing you the Xmas. Toy Town with a
it's Xmas all the time now because
Christmas flow.
It's
Sam
always
Newsman, man of Toy Town, gifts of action, figures abound. Sam Newsman bringing cheer, with Lord Blanket we're all near.
All right, well I know it's not Christmas, but it is Sam Newsman time. What's up, bro? How you been?
I have been fantastic, of course, and it is that time of the show where, of course, before we get into some subject matter, I did take notes. I have notes. Hold on. Where are the notes? Where are the notes? The notes. I have the notes. The notes. I have the notes. And the question is did all of you take notes up until this point, starting with Mormon hate? You're wondering what the Mormon hate was? What is it all about? It's the sacred underwear. It's very simple, It's underwear haterade.
It really
It's
is.
Gatorade. I mean, it's
Haterade.
yeah. I mean, it's very, very simple with that. The next thing is that there was a bunch of talk about Jesus. It reminded me of Sunday school. So there was Sunday school, and then Miami. So
Hey, did they talk about the Nag Hammadi in your Sunday school and Gnostic?
Mormon underwear is
Abraxas
pretty
stuff?
cool. You gotta admit.
Well, listen, I tell you what, it's very
Your
safe.
Sunday school is better than mine. I wish I went to a Sunday school where they talked about Abraxas, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
See
does
what I
it
mean?
use
Listen, I
magic
wish
if
I
you
went
take
to a
picture
Sunday
of
school
it?
where they talked about underwear. How about
Oh,
that?
this is pretty
How
slimming.
about
I gotta say. I don't know. Mormon
Does
underwear
it
is
lose
cool.
any of its magic if you take a picture of it? Is it like Native American spirits?
I don't think that that's how it works. It could be. I wonder. I think they put pictures out now for you to know what they look like. They're like, stop thinking we're weird. We have secrets. That doesn't mean like that they're secret. I don't know what that exactly is, but that's their whole.
What it means is you can't, though. You can't go down the aisle at Walmart and pick up a set of sacred loins.
You can go on eBay though.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
True.
and they might be used. They might even be used then. Hey, how about that?
Well, that's what makes them magic.
Well, wait.
This is where the magic happens.
Gosh. Okay, so we talked about Miami. Someone's been reporting since Roswell. I can tell you no such thing as 8-foot tall aliens.
I think you might be a little prejudicial against 8-foot tall anything, Sam, but that's okay.
Well, wait a minute. What
How could you even see up there? Come on.
Well, I mean, it's something.
See my point.
But I tell you what, it was nothing other than kids setting off fireworks in the mall, and it ended up, taking out a couple of blocks of power.
Having some giant shadow work at play. Okay.
Grounding airplanes.
You sound more and more like the Scooby Gang right now. And then they made the shadow.
There was a bunch of riots that broke out because someone said, "Oh no, listen, you messed up my kicks because you set off fireworks." So I mean, it was one of those things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was more interesting stuff going on, right? I think at that time. That's the thing. It was like a cover for the tunnels.
Well,
Ninja Turtles, bro.
Tunnels. We want to talk about tunnels. I was thinking because this was going back into a whole bunch of things, and those synagogue tunnels have quite the past.
That's right. There was a synagogue tunnel story. Did everyone hear this one? Do we even talk about this? We didn't even mention this yet. Like, check this out. This is footage of a bunch of Orthodox Jews defending a tunnel in their local synagogue from being concrete filled in. Police are trying to arrest them. They're tearing apart their temple. It's like brutal. It's completely brutal. What's going on here? He's drinking a Coke. What's going on here? What's the deal? Like, a group of Orthodox men try to stop police and construction crews from blocking out the tunnel.
Well,
What have a tunnel?
What? All right. So here's the deal.
What is the deal?
So there were construction crews that were slated to fill in this secret underground tunnel of something.
Yeah, Manhattan, right?
Correct.
Or Brooklyn, yeah.
Crown Heights, yeah.
Crown Heights, yeah.
The main synagogue in Brooklyn. Now, what happened is the police were called in. Someone gave them a tip, and they said, "Hey, listen, they're trying to seal a tunnel underneath the synagogue." And then the police show up, say, "Oh, wait a minute, you can't fill that tunnel up. We need to investigate."
Oh, they're against filling the tunnel. Okay.
And then all hell breaks loose because obviously there was a reason why they wanted to seal the tunnel.
Interesting.
Now, of course, there could be many speculations exactly what that is.
So here's where the tunnel is, right? It's like, here's the Shabbat headquarters, the passageways from the headquarters underground. It crosses under the woman's prayer section down here, right? The passageways down here. It goes all the way to the former men's bathhouse.
No, it was a mikvah.
A mikvah. Okay.
Former men, as in what?
So no. But do you guys know what a mikvah is?
What's a mikvah?
What's a mikvah?
A mikvah is a like ceremonial bath before they have them for men and women. This was likely a women's, and it would make sense for so this is an old tunnel, right? This has been around for a while, and so the issue the issue is one of like, you know, permits and zoning. It's a practical issue, but it's been there for a while, and it has to do with modesty. So like the women would maybe they don't want they're going to get a ceremonial bath before they have sex. So it's like this is a whole tradition around this, and that's what a lot of the reactionariness around this has to do with, is that people are like, you know, they're treating it that, hey, this tunnel is here for the women's privacy and to be able to go do this thing without everyone being, because people will talk about it. Like if a woman's going to do the mikvah, they're like, oh, she's gonna go have sex now. And so it's like it's both a privacy issue and a modesty issue, but it is also old-fashioned. And then you got to consider that this is Chabad actually stands for Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. And this particular school is actually kind of controversial because their rabbi, they took him to be the Messiah, and then he died, and now the Messiah can't be dead because they're not Christian, right? And so they're kind of one of the more extreme groups in Judaism. And so the Orthodox Jews kind of like take issue with that to a degree. And so it's kind of a convoluted matter, but this has to do with women having a private way to go do their ceremonial bath.
So why were they filling it up with concrete?
Because it's a permit zone. It's like you can't have just tunnels going from buildings in New York City. This may have been something that was
but when the police show up and then try to investigate, and then the parishioners say,
sure,
you can't
once again
do this,
it's an example of something. Yeah, it's not admittedly it's not a good look. But it also is people defending traditions that they take really, you know, they take personally, but that doesn't. There's always been these conflicts with Judaism and the public at large, and as far as I can tell, like, this is another example of that.
Sam, would you want the police investigating your tunnels, just regardless of your religious beliefs? You know, I think Mormons have tunnels. We don't want police just going through our tunnels unless they're Mormons. I think it's fair to have tunnels be protected. And here's the thing: if they're filling the tunnel up because they're isn't it true that they're closing? It's the former mikvah. They're closing it down. They're moving it. They're changing their plans now. So what they're doing is they're saying, all right, if we maybe are going to sell or rent out this building or something, is that what it's for? Because they're probably no longer going to use it for.
It's not what it used to be. Yeah. We're not looking at a building being used the same way that this was used in the past. But there's
it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Nothing will put me in the mood more than crawling through this spider web little trail and being like, I'm like, because this is essentially you do this every time you wanna get banged, right? As a Jewish woman.
In this particular, in the Lubbits, or what are they called again? The Lubbits.
It's the Chabad thing. It's just completely connected. It's like that's they have their own kind of school of Judaism.
You have to think of them kind of like Westboro Baptists or Mormons, or they're a sect. They have their own beliefs. They believe that their rabbi was essentially Emmanuel, and you know that's a big deal.
Is there more than one kind of Jew out there?
And so when this says Chabad headquarters, this is also from the women's section of it. That's in that article that was in the private message. I saw that.
I literally it's embarrassing. Okay. Jewish ethnic divisions, you know, as you know, there are like we talked about 12 to 13 tribes, but even beyond that, they're just because people live all over the world and integrate all over the world.
Oh, looks like the Blues are winning, by the way.
Yeah,
sorry
the
Ashkenazi, to all the oranges out there.
The Ashkenazi have put in the time, and you have to respect how much time they put in, because wow, that's impressive. But if you look for later Sephardic here, right, you've got orange to yellow and to traditionally Sephardi, right? And so that's interesting because some of the Sephardi Mizrahi mix are from people that are escaping the Spanish Inquisitions or the French Inquisitions and ended up here. But so then, you know, here are your Sephardics, here are your Ashkenazis. And
if you zoom out, are there space Jews?
Probably. That's what one would hope. I mean, that's the thing is, it wasn't space Jews in Space is from Mel Gibson's. No, I really just did that, didn't I? Brooks. History.
I was getting more interested as you
Dude,
typed.
that
I
was a
was
fucking
too.
Floydian slip.
That was the best I've ever. There's a Pink Floydian slip right there. Yeah, but he did Jews in Space, which I think, you know, so in other words, he's not the first one to come up with that either, I'm sure. But I love that part. Jews in Space. Hooray. Sorry, you had more. Did you have more tunnel things you were trying to say? You're still typing about the tunnels, Sam.
I was just saying that all tunnels matter.
All tunnels do matter.
All tunnels matter. That is
Even
the
McMartin
keynote,
tunnels.
say that again.
Even McMartin tunnels.
Well, I don't know. Not sure about that, but there is a certain type of tunnel. Here was one that popped up on my feed. Could you type in the word SLIKS? SLIKS?
Slicks. Slick tunnels.
There it is right there. That 70 years ago,
Oh,
Jewish militias hid weapons
Hell yeah.
among civilians in underground tunnels.
Paste.
Hell yeah.
So now I'm
Hey,
not
I
saying
support
this is what
this.
this was,
Hey.
of course, but this article came out about a few weeks ago.
Did you know that the day and year that Albert Hoffman had his famous bike ride on LSD was the day and year that was the only time in all of World War II that's on record of the Jews actually fighting back against the Nazis? And it was their first attempt to go into the Warsaw Ghetto and collect them to take them to concentration camps. And the Jews have been stockpiling weapons, including grenades, and fucking attacked back. And they were not expecting that. They thought it'd be easy. They weren't prepared. The Nazis, they just went in there. And like the only place where I've ever seen any indication of referencing this in a film was Polanski's The Pianist, which he was, as far as I know, he's the only big director to have survived not just the Holocaust as a Jew, but the Warsaw Ghetto. And so he doesn't explicitly go into it, but he does have the day that happened and does show explosions and indicating something's going on. But it makes sense from the character's perspective because he's in hiding. He can't see everything that's happening. It's
the
just like,
consciousness there. I mean, I never really thought about that, but the Warsaw Ghetto uprising being on the same day as Hoffman's bike ride is really interesting in terms of critical consciousness and the way the world shifted at that point. And also, yeah, just like to remind people, I'm super fine with this. I'm more than fine with this. I'm advocate and pro Second Amendment beyond any state line, because that's not really an amendment. It's more like an obvious truth. So people having militias and hiding weapons 70 years ago seems like a pretty logical thing to do. It seems like everyone.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out west that feel like that they have a patch of land and they've, they're ready for, I guess, the EMP or whatever, and blah, blah, blah.
Isn't this not that dissimilar from the position that liberals have put themselves in, generally speaking, where if you take the moral high ground in everything and act like you're better than everyone else, you're going to be scrutinized to a much higher degree. So, if you look at like Benghazi or something, it looks fucking extra horrible because these are the people who are saying they're above all of that. It's like, yeah, it's like I wanted to say Polanski, but I'm trying to say Pelosi. Like when Pelosi was like, well, I'm a Catholic, so I don't hate anybody. And it's like, dude, you fucking hate Donald Trump. Everyone can see it. Don't say you don't hate anybody. Fucking liar. It's bad enough that you hate him. You gotta lie about it. Just fucking own your shit, But it's like if they didn't take that like superior judgmental position, they wouldn't have to deal with being as heavily scrutinized as they are, because it's just like they're like acting like they're better than the other side, and then repeatedly we see that they're not. So it's just like, but
I also recently watched Wild Wild Country about Osho. I think we talked about that a bit last time, but just to reiterate, like I think everyone should watch this documentary on how they tried to build a new township in America and how they were suppressed from doing it. But it was so incredible, the fight and the struggle, that they became police, had guns, it became the city itself. It's a brilliant fight, but you can see how hard they've made it. And I think about like how like Waco comes to mind. And I saw the South Park episode recently, the meteor shower party, where they're having a meteor shower party, but Waco kind of the alcohol, fire, and tobacco group. What was it? It's like the ATF are showing up, and hold on, here, South Park ATF. The ATF are literally just trying to kill these kids and the families because they don't know what else to do, and they've already kind of made a few mistakes, and so if they don't get rid of it, then it'll become a problem. So we really suppress any group that's trying to become sovereign and self-determinate, and that was the original intention of the United States, was people could come together and build up their own government that could take care of itself in these. I mean, obviously it's hard to do that under a monolithic federalist state, so they destroy it every time. But I mean, shouldn't we be trying to advocate for, I mean, the idea of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, you know, essentially, isn't that what you kind of want to happen eventually again?
Well, it's the whole people who grabbed their pitchforks and rose up against the man analogy when necessary.
Ben Stiller made fun of that because someone said that, you know, these people that are raising their iPhones like pitchforks, and like that they don't get that they're using the corporation's like thing. They think they're using it as a weapon. It's like, well, that's the same thing, because the pitchforks were the tool that their masters made them use, and they picked up their pitchforks against their masters. So picking up your iPhone against your master isn't that ironic, except for how it's poetic.
Word.
Well, I tell you what, in terms of poetic, the last thing that I will go into is the fact that a recent study finds that love really does change the way how the brain works. So when you say that you're in love, essentially what happens, it has a connection to the release of
oxytocin.
Yes, tocin.
Sorry, I think Sam's remembering his ex-girlfriend, and it's making it hard.
Well, you know, it says
the woman gets that when you suck on her nipples too, right? That's one of those things.
The love
Oxytocin.
hormone, something within the brain.
That's not medical advice. Is all I can.
Well, listen, I will tell you though, love will just scramble your brain. That's
true. But love is great. So, what do you think? Are you saying that in a bad way? Like it scrambles your brain, but is that bad?
Well, what about Marquis de Sade?
You know,
I feel like
what about a pure love of sadism?
We love you, Calix. Well, now we're right back to Hellraiser, where like existentialism to its purest point.
Just go back to Cenobites already.
How could you do that? No, but with love, I think you have to think of the difference. The alternative to love is constant pain, suffering, fear, and what are you going to use as your alternative? If you're constantly like, so you think of people that usually are supposed to love each other, but they're yelling at each other. You are the reason why all my problems exist. You know, eventually I think you can cause no medical advice, but I think people can die from that probably. I don't know. I feel that way.
That's when they grab a cocktail.
Yeah, right. I mean, love though. I think
that's what the cocktail's for.
But you give kids love, and it seems like you can see this. You see with a child, you fill it with love. It turns out very differently than if you don't. You know, I think love. You can see the difference. Like love might scramble your brain, but maybe your brain needs to be scrambled. Acid might scramble your brain, you know, like I think
right. And what do we mean by love? Like that's the thing. It's like does true love have an opposite? You know, if your love has an opposite, then maybe it's not love, but a strong ego need for a more secure sense of self that another person temporarily provides for you until they don't provide it anymore, and then you lash out, you know, in resentment that weren't you supposed to give me this thing? Didn't we? Wasn't this the agreement? You know, so it's like, you know, there's another
side of the paper.
Yeah, there's another substitute version of love that's like a lot of what we see in the you know, the love genre, like the music industry and the romantic films and all this stuff. And you know, sometimes there's crossover for sure, but real love is transcendent, right? Love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it is not self-seeking, etc. That feels redundant, but I think there's truth to it. Who said that? Was that Shakespeare?
Well, I could talk about love in terms of cocktails all night long. But I tell you what,
sounds like you're at a miserable last date. My bad.
Like a Molotov cocktail.
Sometimes I just love to just take the shot and just get it over with. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah. Have you talked to your doctor about the vaccine? Find out from your pharmaceutical agency which vaccine is right for you.
Did anyone here get the latest DLC?
I just want to say that Molotov is a highly underestimated diplomat, and we often refer to the Molotov cocktail without thinking of, you know, some of the greater philosophical and ideological efforts and agendas of Molotov. So he's a cool guy. I feel like he deserves a quote. How about the trouble with free elections is that you never know how they are going to turn out. Okay, that didn't really.
Just think about this: is that his cocktail is the symbol of peaceful protesting.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that is.
Yeah,
I think
protest isn't worth shit if you can't see the direct connection between your protest and what you're protesting about.
This
So
is
I've
my
talked about this
favorite.
before, but yeah, if you're blocking traffic, get the fuck out of the way, man. That's not a protest. Unless if you're protesting
Get out of the way.
traffic being too free. If traffic is running too smoothly and that's what you're protesting, okay, I get it. But otherwise, get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Again, my favorite Vyacheslav
Down the road.
quote is "Only a fool would attack us." So I think this is true. Well, we're pretty much at the 2-hour thing. Is there anything else, Sam, that you wanted? Is there any more news relevant, like any more tunnels you found? Did you see dead children?
Well, okay, so here's one. Judge Judy has endorsed neocon Nikki. How about that?
Oh, okay.
There you go. So that's the,
I saw a
that's
bunch
the
of cursed AI of
that's the
Judge Booty.
political news of the
Judge
show.
Judy
That's
Booty?
about
Have
it.
you-
That's a wrap.
I can't show you the Judge Judy Booty, but if you look up AI cursed art, you can see and it's probably the best thing about Judge Judy I've ever seen. I'll admit that. Okay,
Dude, can I speak to that for a second? I gotta say that I was I derived some pleasure from seeing just a snippet of a Tucker Carlson thing talking about Nikki Haley, because I said the exact same thing for the last month, which is that I wish I would have seen it sooner, but I was just like, dude, the left is going to go all in on Nikki Haley, even though she's like a fucking 90s Republican. It's like they know that their man who's in office is not looking so good, and they're like trying, he's sharp as a tack, so they're gonna take this route. She's not a Pied Piper candidate in the sense that Donald Trump was a Pied Piper candidate for the DNC, where they wanted to find somebody that they could give a platform to and then make fun of and say how ridiculous. What they're doing with Nikki Haley is like, this is really their shot. Like, they want to maintain some semblance of power, and they know probably at this point the only way they can do it with somebody who's at least relatively on their side. And I think that that's where they're putting their money, is in her. And she's worse than a shill in a way, because she's just like, it's that line between that neo liberal thing and like the 90s conservative, where it's just like, I can't even fucking tell the difference anymore. They've moved the goalposts so far over. Nice shot.
Judge Booty, bro. I'm just saying.
Judge Booty.
I've got something better. I don't know if I'll find it in time, but I got something way better than Judge
You're
Booty.
guilty.
She's underrated, bro.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just saying. Good job for Judge Judy. Okay.
Just tell me that I'm guilty, Judge. I'm guilty.
I am. Okay.
Well, listen, I'm guilty of having a Saturday morning radio show.
That's
That Epstein song that you played earlier in the show, I played that this past Saturday. We'll play it again.
I'm gonna give you
Sam.
a cleaner version. I'm working on a second version of it, so I'll have some more good stuff for you. I appreciate you playing all the good. See, everyone who gets to listen to this music is changed by it. I'm for that, so that's important.
Well, listen, I think that Paranoid American has some songs too. I need to start playing.
Paranoid
AI
American.
You're more than welcome to.
I think they're called science.
AI sesh.
What's it called?
Saturday
Science
mornings. How about that?
Sound scientists.
Scientists.
That's right. I did it. I knew I could get there. Sound Scientist is amazing. The artist formerly known as Paranoid American, Sound Scientist. Let's Make Some Nephilim. It felt good. I gotta say, it felt like sensual. Oh, so good. All right. And then Conspiracy Theories also turned out really good. He has one song that has a bunch of curse words in it. It's really great.
Okay, so FCC regulations abound. FCC regulations abound. That's all.
Ghislaine
This one I posted right as we started. This is a good one.
This is a good one.
This one's safe to play. It hasn't been copyrighted.
That's right. I got to be careful, because every once in a while I'll play a Sound Scientist song, and they have a very aggressive legal team, and they'll come after me.
How does that happen? I don't understand. Is it just that similar to another song? Like, how are they doing copyright stuff on it?
I think you've got because Paranoid American has it through like Spotify or like
I use CD Baby out of
CD
all
Baby.
those, and CD Baby is particularly aggressive. And even if I uncheck all the boxes, it is like, let anyone use this. They just send the dogs after everyone, and I get to play. Who was the guy in the took over the town? And he's just like, it's not me, it's the attack dog. It's the scary lady with the AR-15. It's not me. I'm the guru here.
The robot said to go to bed, son. It wasn't me. Yeah, I hear you. Sam Newsman News Radio Show. If you go to
WDCE.org.
If you go to-
WDCE.org. Yeah.
if you go to samnewsman.com or also to the Sam Newsman link tree, you can very quickly get to WDCE for the DC for Direct District of Columbia. And you can find his radio show right here. You can also listen to it wherever you are in the world. So that's pretty sweet. And you can listen to songs by Paranoid American and Andreas. So sweet.
Have people listening from all over the world, people in Singapore, Japan, over in Europe, a couple of countries over in Europe, and of course, coast to coast.
People calling you, just begging you to get them smuggled out of their countries. And he can't. He can't. So stop asking.
They filled all the tunnels. He can't do it anymore.
The tunnels have been closed. They've been closed. The police showed up. Had to close the tunnels.
They sealed him up with the commandant on one side and you on the other.
That's right.
It's a
Back
Stolic
off my-
17
I've
joke.
known
Back
quite
off
a
my
few puppets
tunnels,
to
yo.
have tunnels. I'm just saying.
Back off my tunnels, yo. All
Yeah.
tunnels matter.
All tunnels matter.
All tunnels matter. So, but yeah, so that's it. Every Saturday morning, 9 to noon Eastern time. The first hour is radio only. So you can only listen to the first hour by going to WDCE.org or downloading the Live 365 app. But if you were in Richmond, you just turned on the radio and went to 90.1 FM, you would hear my beautiful puppet voice on the radio. But I do live stream, so I simulcast because people often are saying, well, listen, I can't hear that beautiful puppet voice. So I said, well, you know what? Might as well turn on these cameras so you can see this beautiful puppet face. So I do simulcast like a broadcast professional would do at Sam Newsman all over social media, setting the standard, raising the bar, the only way a real media puppet knows how to do. From the most trusted puppet in media, reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam Newsman, and it's the music. Cue walk off.
The golden giraffe standing tall in Babylon's neon-knuckled malls. Sam Newsman, the hero we need.
God bless you,
Bringing
Sam
joy to
Newsman.
all of the kind deed.
All right, sweet. Well, you know, we did do a good amount of Sam Newsman stuff, but I also want to say that Chosen One from Paranoid American has now finally reached over actually 103 followers now, which
We
means
did it.
it will
Now we
be
only need another
released.
200, and then we can
Yeah.
release it.
This is what he's like. This is what I have to do.
I feel like this has been months that you've been sharing this Chosen One, number 2.
This
Yeah.
one took a long time, but we were also doing NASA Comic, and NASA Comic is coming out. It's in the slate. I actually got some very early editions printed, but now I got to figure out how to get even more printed.
Beautiful. Well, make sure you guys go to paranoidamerican.com where you can pick up his sticker collections, which have come out recently. There's some pretty great ones. You can't deny that you want the John Wayne Gacy and the Charles Manson, but if you go back a little further, the Heaven's Gate, who doesn't love the Heaven's Gate collection? Someone recently told me that they thought I was a little too into Heaven's Gate. Just want to explain, it's just because of the sticker collection. That's the only reason. And please do not, neuter or execute yourself. Thank you.
I mean, and if you do, you're going to be waiting for a little while for the Hail Bop to come back around.
Yeah, so just don't. But hey, Heaven's Gate, pretty great as a sticker collection. You
They
gotta
made really good websites for back in the day.
Yeah,
It's a great movie too. And honestly, like if people are looking for those
I
last
never thought about this.
their last 20 minutes of
key.
Eyes Wide Shut, I gotta say, I'm more interested in the missing 2 hours of Heaven's Gate. So yeah.
But you talked earlier about the Tanit keyhole, and now I can't help but think about that keyhole symbol with Heaven's Gate. Is that something that you were going to try to get into? Is that what that was about?
No, we were just talking about the eye and the all-seeing eye and the pyramid. I've never even actually seen it as a keyhole before.
Oh my
so
god!
that's
And then
new
it's got the
information.
G at the top for Gimel between Keter and Tiferet. What the hell is going on?
That's
yeah.
pretty nice.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then if you go to thesyncbook.com where you can go to videos and click on Syncflix, you can watch David Plate's work. But even easier, you can go to x.com/mkultrasound723, click on highlights, and then you can see all of his syncs as well as other things he's been uploading. Here's Home Alone with Michael Jackson's Dangerous. Not even kidding. So yeah, you're going to have to watch that.
Careful.
I feel about that was like the limit, but it was, you get the point. Now, because of me doing that, you're gonna want to watch this. Let's be real. Like, this is, it's so right on. Oh, it feels good. I'm glad you did this. Thank you for that. And then, yeah, everybody else should go to tartarinova.com, go to the Discord or Matrix link, join the community, and yeah, we can change the world if we just work together. How about that? Oh, you're muted, Thomas. What are you trying to say? You're still muted, Thomas.
Oh, I found one of the things I was looking for. It would be a great way to just send this off. So you can pre-approve it by taking a look at it first.
Oh dear.
But I've got. Don't judge me just because I
don't judge me. What? I think
don't judge me.
We're here now.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to everyone else out there.
Okay.
Don't judge me.
Yeah, at this point, he's like, I don't care what you think. Where is this going? You're saying to the private chat? Is that where this is?
Yeah. I can't post a picture in there, and I got to put it on my Dropbox really quick.
Oh, okay. Or you send it in Instagram or something.
Oh, here we go. I've got a folder full of these, but this is just one of the more appropriate.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I did see a Hillary Pixar Island movie recently that exists.
Well, this isn't AI. This is an actual image from C-SPAN.
Yeah, and I'm the Pope.
Yeah, bro. It works better in widescreen. I like where you're going with this. I promote it. Okay. Love you guys. See you soon.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Sing.